Do you feel ready?
I always feel ready.
You believe in God?
I believe in God.
We're laughing then, aren't we?
No.
We're laughing. I mean, like we are supported by invisible forces that are benevolent and kind.
Always.
Love that video about your grandfather. You obviously love him. He's is he still the most important male figure in your life?
Yeah, he's probably the only important male figure of my life, which is a strong statement to make, but that's about right.
Do you have good female figures in your life? Strong women?
No, I try to be that. I come from a very sort of broken, crazy family.
Like I heard that sort of 9 of your uncles had been incarcerated, so you come from a family where that crime is part of the story.
Yeah, I mean, they're not 9 of them, but 5 of the 9 of them all spent some time in prison, and that sort of trickled down. And I have cousins that have spent time in prison, and it was just a part of my story growing up. And it wasn't particularly unique. It's a weird thing to say, but in the retrospect, that seems normal to me. We're going to go see your uncle in prison. Okay, sure, that's what you do.
I think that's normal for a lot of people.
Right.
But from other people, it's
not
extraordinary.
Yeah, which really lets you know that you can create different simulations in different pockets of society, and until you travel outside of it to have a different experience, you think it's just the norm.
When did that happen for you? When did your life transition from what was, your early determining context to, what was the thing that should change first for you, Candace?
Well, I think I was always sort of an alien child. Like my mother says all the time, when I was a kid, they were just weirded out by me. Like I never cried. They always thought I could understand them as a baby in the crib. Ooh. Which is really bizarre. But the earliest thing that I remember was my first play date, which was in kindergarten class. I was 5 years old, and there was a girl named Lindsay DeLeo. She was this blonde girl with blue eyes, and we became fast friends. I think we had reading class together, and her mother invited me over for a play date. And I went to her house, and I was just shocked that people lived in the way that she lived. She lived in the suburbs. She had a massive house. She had this Victorian concept room. She had a nanny. She had a playroom. And I just remember being shocked that this was even a part of life, because prior to, obviously, I existed within the realm of my family. I lived in a really small apartment. Me and my 2 sisters shared a room in a low-income housing building, and it blew my mind. So I think when I was a really small kid, I was already considering how is this, asking the question at least, which is important in order to get the answer. How could people be living such different lives? And you either take 2 approaches to it. You either say, I hate rich people because they live that way, or I want to become a rich person and learn how to live that way. I think I've always been curious about success and wanted to learn how to be successful myself. So my path was somewhat natural in that regard. I never hated rich people. It's a very weird thing to me that people demonize the rich.
Do you hate anyone?
No, I think hate's a terrible emotion because it you harvest it internally. So if you hate someone, you hate them.
Yeah, right.
They're okay. They don't feel that.
So you've always been aspirational, even when you were a child. It sounds to me from what little you've told me already that sounds like you had an unusual emotional state, that you were sort of quite an independent person.
Yes.
And that even watching you, I've watched quite a lot of your videos and interviews. You're a very powerful person. You're quite driven, aren't you? You've got a strong presence.
Yeah, and I've always had that. My teachers hated me growing up because
Why?
I was just extremely assertive. think about the function.
Where was you educated, Mel?
That's a very good question. I think I like to say that I was self-educated, because you don't learn anything in school. You learn propaganda. You learn how to function in society in the way that the government and society wants you to function. So I like to think that because I always had to earn my way through life, my parents couldn't afford to put me through school. My parents stopped paying for anything for me when I turned 14 years old. I was kicked out of my house, and I was living with a boyfriend for 6 months. I was one of those kids, know?
Wow.
And so I sort of was self-taught, and I was constantly pushing back against arbitrary authority. Arbitrary authority meaning that because I'm the teacher and I say go left, go left. Well, no, tell me why I should go left. I need to there needs to be a little bit of reasoning behind this. I was always a critical thinker my entire life. And that sort of, I went to university for a couple of years and then dropped out. So I think I'm so smart because I didn't go to university.
See that thing where you said you're autodidact, self-educated person? What was you reading?
Okay, so I when I was a small kid, I loved books. I would get totally lost in novels, and it was a lot of fiction novels that I grew up on. I was reading books, very bizarre. I mean, to be like a 5-year-old reading, an 8-year-old reading Nora Roberts and like Dean Koontz, and I love to get wrapped up in fiction novels. So that helped, obviously, in terms of just my vocabulary and ability to communicate. I was always reading. I was a big reader, a total dweeb. At home, I was cool in school, but I was a total dweeb at home. And I remember racing even when I was in 5th grade to read the Harry Potter books, like one of those people that was in line waiting for them. She's a disaster now, by the way, but her books are very good. Politically, she's a total disaster.
Yeah.
She should stick to fiction because she doesn't understand reality. She doesn't. She really doesn't. I'm sorry. Wonderful world she created, though, for people to get lost inside of. But yeah, I didn't start reading political.
Sorry, I just gotta move this chair.
No, you're fine. Get
so
comfortable.
heavy.
We're gonna be in here for
We're not leaving.
Get comfortable.
We're not leaving until we agree on absolutely everything. Candace. then we'll
so
leave.
I have you in a MAGA hat.
I'm wearing it already, but just down my trousers.
Yeah. Oh, very nice. Very nice. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't start reading, I guess, nonfiction until I got interested in nonfiction and politics and things of that nature, and then I started reading Milton Friedman and Dr. Thomas Sowell.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Tell me what are that, because I haven't understood any of these references, like even those fictional ones you were reading when you were a kid. Now, what are these these modern, more recent ones?
You know Milton Friedman.
Oh, The Economist.
Yeah, and Dr. Thomas Sowell is also an economist, but he's a black economist, which was the most important reading that I could have done.
Why?
Because he just completely makes you understand that people are using and manipulating you because of the color of your skin. And he just uses fact-based logic and reasons and world history, and will bring you backward and forward and, show you basic theses like they make you think that because you're a minority, that means that you're behind. And that's the history of the world tells us that that's not true. In the Ottoman Empire, the Greeks owned the banks. That was a Turkish empire. The Greeks owned the banks and were doing the best in that economy. So he just goes through world history and just shows you pretty much all of the fallacies and all of the emotional arguments that are made, and basically tells you if you want to get ahead in life and start from nothing, you have to abandon these arguments, these emotional arguments, and understand the facts and how it is that you can start behind and get ahead. And that's what I chose to do.
Do you think there are certain philosophical ideas that may have a truth to them when practiced on the level of the individual, but when translated to a social scale become more complex and break down a little?
Sure, socialism, because it's utopian, because it takes.
What about individualism itself? Because like what I feel, Candace, is you're a powerful person. You're driven. You've come from nothing, and you've achieved a lot in your life, and it feels to me, at least, and I don't to suggest this to you because you've not directly said this. Well, I think you maybe have directly said stuff like, well, if I can do this, you should do it.
Right.
Like now, but that kind of, for me, is to deny your unique abilities and your unique qualities. Even having drive and the willingness to work hard is in itself an endowment. It's
right. Well, I don't say you can do what I've done, right? I don't say that you're going to follow everything that I've done. I actually hope that my kids never have to live through, or see the things that I had to see growing up. Why would I want that? I don't think people should. I mean, I don't want my children to go see their uncles in prison, or to struggle financially and not to be able to afford to go on a school trip. I don't think that that's a necessary thing for you to understand how to become successful. But what I do demand is that people abandon a victim mentality, right? I think that has become a cancer in our society.
Victim mentality. I've seen you talk about this.
Yes.
Now, give us some background on it, because some English people won't know what you mean.
It's just the oppression Olympics. Everybody wants to say, I deserve more because I'm more oppressed than you. Oh, okay, well, I might say that I'm more oppressed than you because I'm black, right? And you're white. So instantly I'm more oppressed and I deserve more, and my voice should be louder. And then we say, okay, well, you're a male and I'm a woman. So instantly I deserve even more because I'm a woman and you're a male, and women are more more oppressed, which is totally a lie. And I should have my voice heard louder. And then you keep going, gay, straight, and they've created all of these little pockets, and you have to figure out who is the most oppressed person. I guess it would be a disabled, black, female, gay person would probably be the most. If you want to win the oppression Olympics, that's it. And everyone should fawn over you, and everything you say should count and should matter. And it's absolute crap. The victim mentality is what's stopping most people from getting from point A to point B.
I see what you mean, but if I imagine a gay disabled, and if you are gay disabled, what was the other
Black,
bit?
female.
Black female.
Yeah.
If I imagine that person, I don't and I'm sure there's, even within that category, I'm sure there's lots of variety. But when I think of the most powerful people in the world and the people with the most influence, not many of them are gay, disabled, black females. So I feel, well, I'm not by the way, a kind of, just so you know where we're starting from.
Right.
I feel like the difference between MSNBC and, Breitbart and Trump and Obama is so small as to be irrelevant from my political standpoint. These are what I would call the system.
Right.
I suppose what I'm trying to illustrate, Candace, is that it's relative. That for me, none of those people are offering the kind of social change that's required to create the systems that human beings deserve. So what it seems to me is that you have a tremendous faith in the ability of the individual to create their own destiny.
Correct.
And why wouldn't you? Because you've lived it. But do you think that that's applicable to all individuals?
I think 100%. If unless there are, of course, policies in place that are preventing you from doing that. There are not in America at this moment in time. So we're forming our own oppression by buying into the idea of oppression. One of the things that harmed the black community the most over these last 60 years has been the welfare state. It's what's happening in France right now. It doesn't work. It doesn't, giving handouts and creating a giant government and not creating, incentives for people to work, which is what people want to do. It's the human spirit that governments don't seem to understand, and that policies that are socialist don't seem to understand. They don't account for the human spirit. We want to be valuable. We want to create. So when you remove all of that, you end up with people that are oppressed and with a variety of problems. And you can pick a ton of problems within the black community that I'm trying to reverse. And it all starts with abandoning the victim mentality. The government tells me that I should feel bad for myself for being a woman and being black, and make me understand that I'm behind in society. Those are the racists. Don't tell me that I need to feel bad about myself. I don't feel that way. And they insist that you do. So the greatest challenge and also the most fun, I think, that I have on these college campuses is that you want to see if a black person, you want to see who the real racists are, tell people that as a black person, you don't see yourself as a victim. They lose their goddamn minds. That's why they hate me. Read the articles about me. They call me a neo-Nazi. I mean, The Guardian, right? Neo-Nazi, supporter of white supremacy, because I believe that I can do whatever I want in my life because I have confidence. What does that tell you? That they're rushing to smear me because I believe that black people can do it without government handouts. It means that they insist that black people do it with government handouts. Otherwise, they'd say, all right, she has a perspective. I don't make any policies. I'm not in the government. I'm not running for office. Why does it bother them so much? Right?
I feel you. But what I'm saying is like, where is compassion and love in your philosophy? Where is the place for that?
Well, what do you mean? If somebody, compassion to me is not telling people that they should be coddled because of the color of their skin. I think that's
no, I don't
foolish.
think that either. I don't think that either. And but this is what. Well, let me tell you this. I feel like, say, my background doesn't sound nearly as challenging as yours. I come from what you might call from, I'm talking prior to celebrity, which would be, I'm imagining, the only things you'll know about me. But prior to that, I grew up in an ordinary household, single parent family. My mum was sick a lot when I was a kid. I had sort of intermittent access with my dad, relatively regular, but my parents weren't together. And then I became a crack and heroin addict when I was sort of in my late teens. And I feel that there are, what do I want to say? I feel that there were social factors there. I think if I was from a different background, had access to different resources, that I may have received psychological or spiritual input at different points. Now, I'm not complaining about my life. I've earned good money and I've got a good family and stuff, and I'm really, really happy. But I think to deny social factors in the cultivation of the individual really plays into the hands of the already powerful.
Oh, but I actually don't deny those social factors. So I tell people that the biggest problem facing the Black community is father absence, but that's being incentivized by our government. So the Black single motherhood rate was 23% in 1960s before welfare programs were implemented. Today it's 74% in the Black community. That's because they literally will give a Black mother more money from the government if the father doesn't live in the home. I really believe in a two-parent home. You can just look at the statistics to see that children are better off when they have two parents. But think about what's perpetuated in our media. Think about radicalized feminism. We can do it without men. F men. We hate men. That's why I fight these concepts, because what you're talking about is true. That's not what people are talking about in the political realm. They want to get rid of all of that in favor of more government, more government, more government. It's become increasingly radicalized, and it's harming the individual and their chances. You know, when you come from a two-parent home versus a single parent, there are tons of statistics that prove that what you're saying is right. But my compassion towards that is when I go and I combat feminism, right? When I go and I wear a Him Too shirt to the Brett Kavanaugh hearings in debacle because I don't believe in the Me Too movement, right? I think it's been radicalized. I think that it's a harmful feminism. I don't even like calling it feminism because it's just a means for people to secure power, and it's cloaked as feminism. And that's how I exercise compassion. I exercise compassion when I go fight for the First Step Act, and I understand that many people that are in prison because they grew up in that environment where they didn't have any parents raising them. My mother grew up in group homes and didn't graduate high school. She didn't end up in prison, but she very well could have. And so you exercise compassion by having those conversations. Those aren't the conversations that are being had at the political level.
I don't think that is exercising compassion. I think that's exercising analysis, critical thought, and the intellect, which I would never challenge you on. You're obviously very adept and very strong in each of those areas. Let's go into a different territory for a moment. Am I right in thinking that you suffered from anorexia when you
That's
were
correct.
Younger?
Yes, I suffered from anorexia for about 4 years.
Wow, that's pretty serious. How's your eating now?
Fine, I can't stop eating. That's my
tell me
problem.
what the anorexia was like.
Well, what's interesting is that, and you're an interesting person to talk to about this, because there is a spiritual component of anorexia. There is when you starve the body, that's why people do these fastings in many religions. When you starve the body, there's almost a mental clarity that takes over, and that's what I think becomes addicting for most people. Like for me, it was never about weight, and for most people, it's not about weight. It's usually, when you learn about anorexia, they tell you that it's usually a manifestation of people trying to assert control over their lives. And that's what it is. It's the one thing you can control when you feel like there's chaos is what you put in your mouth and your body. So that was for me after going through a unique situation and feeling that my whole life was out of control. I just manifested as an eating disorder. And I had it for 4 years on and off, but if you saw pictures, I was like 30 pounds skinnier, maybe even 40 pounds skinnier than I am now, which is insane.
Did you get any help?
No, I helped myself, which is crazy, right? But what was I going to do? Go talk to, I'm a smart person. So I think it's harder, and I don't know this, I'm saying this as a thought, Jordan Peterson would have to tell me if I'm right or wrong. He's the one that's got, the doctorate for this stuff. But I think that it's really hard for people that have a higher IQ to go get help. One time that I went to a therapist, it was with my parents. My parents decided they were going to try therapy. The woman was just a total moron. Literally everything that she was trying to say to me and my family wasn't helpful. And I think that me feeling like I didn't find someone that was smart in the chair probably sort of turned me off.
That is upsetting.
But if I had sat down with Dr. Jordan Peterson first, I probably would be like, yeah, therapy's great. But no, I didn't. I just got better.
The therapy was ineffective because you found the therapist intellectually and analytically inept.
Yeah.
But you can't just breeze into I just got better, because anorexia, that's a very, very serious mental condition. I've got friends that are suffering with that, and it's like almost I'm a drug addict, a recovering drug addict, and like my own experience with addiction is that precisely that it's trying to deal with a deficit,
right?
My belief is that it's a spiritual deficit, a lack of connection, a dissatisfaction with the material world, an inability to allied into systems that seem erroneous, duplicitous, meaningless, and a powerful need for some values, some spirit. Now, like when I feel that perhaps there's a comparable that addiction is underscored by, I want to say, some certain universals, whether it's an eating disorder, sexual obsession,
right,
or like obviously drug addiction, what I'm curious about is how that would be resolved, how that would end, where that would go.
Well, I had to identify the issue. I mean, what caused my eating disorder? I actually realized that, I went through this experience in high school that was classified as a hate crime.
What was that?
It was
those racist lads,
right,
was it?
Right. Well, I don't consider them racist.
What did they do?
I think that was part of the reason that I caused an eating
go on.
disorder.
What happened?
But they left me racist voicemails, and then it became this sort. But I don't consider.
Well, that is racist.
But does that make an
individual?
But
voicemail
does that make
racist?
An individual racist? That's the question. Can you do something without having to carry a label for the rest of your life? Can you say something off-putting, which I'm sure you've done many times? Right?
You're not
the most right. Does
people that know me
make you
and
a
listen to
homophobic?
this.
Does that make you a racist? Does that make you a sexist? Can you do an act
I did any of the
without having to carry a label for the rest of your life?
I did do some of the sexist.
Okay. So
I hope not, actually.
That's my point. So for the situation,
because if there's no forgiveness, how are we going to improve the world?
That was my problem. So they did something. It was remarkably stupid. We were also in
What
high
was
school.
it?
They left racist voicemails.
Tell me what they said.
Well, I don't think I can say those words on here. But
you can N-word your way through it.
Okay, so dirty N-word.
Horrible.
Tar and feather, that dirty N-word.
Bloody
We're
hell,
gonna
mate.
put a bullet in the back of your head like we did to Martin Luther King, right? Terrible stuff.
They brought up an icon
Right, a lot of
African American civil rights.
But why did they do that? Right? Nobody cares about the why. They just want to rush and call people racist. Okay.
I'm still adjusting.
And here's how I got through my eating disorder. So this thing happens, it gets taken out of control, it gets blown up, it's on the front page of a newspaper, and suddenly people are discussing you. And I'm in high school. I'm 17 years old. It's not what people want. I didn't want that to be, my high school story, especially getting ready to go to school.
You felt that your personal experience was reappropriated and told back to you, that you were used as an object in someone else's narrative.
That's exactly correct. And then now, beyond that,
I'll
being
just
called
say,
a victim.
that's terrible racism, what you experienced there. That's really bad.
Well, no,
I'm
actually going to challenge. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you on that.
It's on the list, Candace.
I'm going to challenge you on
things that have happened. It's on there.
I'm going to challenge you on that. Ready?
Go on.
So you say that's terrible racism that I experienced.
I say it as a white man.
Okay. Or a couple of high school kids. There were 4 kids in that car. One of them I knew. 3 had never laid eyes on me, had never even seen me.
How old were they?
The youngest person in the car was 14. Are we really going to label a 14-year-old racist for the rest of their life? I mean, this is insane. But of course, it sells newspapers, right? This terrible thing happened in our town, and people suddenly are invested, and moms or suburban moms are writing letters to the editor, and everyone's like, in this because nothing happens, and now they have something that's happened. And the media took what should have been a teaching moment for children. Okay, why did they do it? Well, maybe they had their first beer. One guy in the car is upset with me because I stopped hanging out with him because I got my first boyfriend. He said, we're going to call her and leave her a voicemail. Oh, and she's black. Okay, you give a drunk 14-year-old a phone. By the way, there's no emotional connection. Nobody ever talks about technology and how easy it is to be mean now, right? You can't do that to my face. Would they have called me those things to my face? No, of course not. It's hard to be mean in person. But leaving a voicemail, I'll say anything to this cup. Right, this is Russell Brand. I'll say anything to this goddamn cup.
Don't offend the Russell Brand cup.
Right.
Because I'm sensitive about that.
All right. Okay, but this is what I'm saying. So people don't even consider that we were the first generation that had Facebook and Instagram.
Candace,
and
I think it's not pronounced Instagram. That's a strange way of saying
Instagram.
it.
Instagram.
Like someone on a penny farthing bicycle going past under a parasol.
It sounds better that way. We should be calling it Instagram.
Okay, I'm with you on that. Instagram. I'm with you on the emphasis on the last syllable of Instagram. I'm coming with you on that, Jenny. Now, it seems to me that was a traumatic incident, and your response to it
was anorexia.
Think, yeah, which is pretty serious also.
Yeah.
But I think it's admirable that you're willing to be forgiving of the perpetrators of that, because they admittedly were kids. But I don't think that there's a few things that I think, and I also agree with you that the media capitalize on certain types of hysterical, like a sort of a kind of hysterical attitude because it sells. I don't think there is a genuine, oh no, we're actually really shocked that this racism's happened. How can we end it? I don't think that's what the energy that newspapers run on. I would agree with you on that as well. But the fact that you're being forgiving of that incident and willing to let go of that incident doesn't negate for me the fact that the particular language they used may have been socially resourced. I just want to ask you about something because it happened to me the other day. I'm like there's a English black footballer called Raheem Sterling, bloody good footballer actually, soccer player in your language, and someone called him either a mank C-U-N-T,
I saw this,
or a black C-U-N-T.
I saw that.
So he's pissed off about it, Raheem Sterling,
and
understandably.
The guy lost his job, and
the guy lost his job. We can discuss that aspect of it in a minute.
Right.
but what I was like, and Raheem Sterling Instagrammed a post saying like, here's two stories. One's about like a black footballer buying his mum a house. One's about a white footballer buying his mum a house. And the one about the white footballer's like, lovely young white footballer buys mum a house. And the one about the black footballer buying his mum a house is, flash, little bastard, buys mum a house, right? So like, Raheem Sterling brilliantly like sort of selects these two stories about the same subject and notes how one is rendered as a kind of like negatively and one is rendered positively. Right. And Raheem Sterling says that this is racially motivated. Now, like, I don't think I need to be a black person to say, yeah, that for me aligns with the way that the media functions in perpetuating certain narratives. And whilst you say the perpetuation of the victim narrative is disempowering African Americans or perhaps even black people worldwide, I'm not fully sure of how or the breadth of your philosophy. I think it is what do I want to say, myopic to suggest that the powerful cultural narratives and historic oppression don't play a part in people's current economic poverty, whilst the way out of that I would accept would be individual culpability and individual will. Not everyone has that.
Right.
Not everyone has that. Not everyone has that drive, that power. Some people need support. Now, well, the role of the state and the veracity of the state's intentions are certainly things I question as well. Do I think that the Democrat Party are super kind, wonderful people? Well, let's have a look at the last 20 years. How did that work out? How were African Americans treated under Barack Obama? Like, so, we've got the evidence, the data's in. It's neither party works particularly well. But for me to deny that there is an impact of social, economic and historic conditions on the individual experience of people, and and those conditions are not affected by race, for me, I don't think that's true, Candace.
No, well, first off, I want to go to your two articles because you used the word myopic. Okay, you used a sample of two articles to come up with this great conclusion.
It's Raheem Sterling's.
Is every single... I understand that. Is every single article about a black person buying a house negative? Or did you find one that was and do a comparative analysis?
Hold on, it's Raheem Sterling.
Hold on. Is every single article of a white person buying a house positive? Or did you find an article of a white person positive and now you've used this to say that this means that every single white person that an article is written about is true or false? I have a problem with this data set, and this is what we see over and over again. It's the same thing that they do when they extract the 16 unarmed black men that are shot and killed by police officers every year. Forget to mention that there's a higher rate for white people. You did the exact same thing that I can't stand.
Listen. It was actually Raheem Sterling.
I found two articles.
Get Raheem
this
Sterling.
now must be a universal truth.
Hold on a second.
I'm Russell Brand, and I found two articles.
You better calm down, because firstly, it was Raheem Sterling that did that.
So that counts for, times it by 1,000.
No, hold on. What I'm saying is I'm going to get Raheem Sterling's number and you can bull him out because he's probably better equipped to deal with it.
This is how the media creates a simulation.
Hold on.
One side by side, and now it's universal truth here on the Russell Brand.
Oh, you're amazing. Yeah. Listen to me for a second, please. What I'm saying is that whilst, of course, all of us can construct narratives by selecting information that supports our idea, Raheem Sterling didn't do this in Abyss. On the Saturday, someone screams racial abuse at him. On the next day, he goes, oh, look, I'm not surprised because I experience a lot of this treatment at a subtler level in the way that I'm handled in the press. This is his personal experience that Raheem Sterling is recounting. And then we look at the rest of the information and say, oh, what does it seem to be like for young black men in England? Are there any commonalities economically? Are there any judicial or criminal issues where there's a commonality. It's not just that these narratives are being cherry-pricked. There is also the data is in on incarceration of young black men in America,
because
for example.
we disproportionately commit crimes in America. So are we not supposed to be arrested because we're
But
black?
you're doing the same thing there, Candace. You're extracting that bit of data without saying, well, what are the economic conditions of most young black men in America?
But now we're agreeing.
And what's the history?
You're missing this. Now you're missing this. I agree that we are economically depressed as black Americans. What I'm talking about, what we disagree on, is the solution. Okay?
Well, you don't know what I think the solution is.
So we've been economically depressed because we've bought into the myth that government is going to fix our problems. We have disproportionately been voting for Democrats for the last 60 years. Okay? So all of our problems is because black Americans disproportionately take welfare programs. We disproportionately.
So we might not disagree on the solution.
I guess we're not disagreeing.
Hey, let's all vote
in this
Democrat.
moment, that's right. So I guess in this moment we're not disagreeing. You're saying that I'm ignoring the fact that they've been economically depressed, and that economical depression then leads to higher crime rates. I agree with all of that. Okay? What we disagree on, or perhaps what people disagree with me on a lot, are the solutions for it. Okay? And I point out the fact of how we got here.
What's your solution?
If you don't understand how we got here in terms of buying into the idea that the government was going to fix everything.
All right. Now, because you think it's all this victim mentality stuff.
It is. And they've been able to sell. The easiest person to sell socialism to is a wealthy person. Go to Hollywood. They're like the number one socialist because they feel guilty about
socialism.
It's true. No, but
That's
because
not
they feel
socialism.
guilty about their wealth. You are the perfect stereotype of somebody that I could get to grow government with. Russell, look at these poor people. Look at how well you live. Look at this podcast studio. Don't you feel bad as a white straight male that all of this is going on? Oh, of course, yes. What should I do? Use your platform to tell people that this is wrong, and that you become the voice that actually allows people to grow government. And what it does is it decreases opportunities for black Americans. I want opportunities, not handouts.
You're having an argument with me that's your normal argument with normal people. You're going to have to...
I'm actually just having fun.
Don't throw that smile in. Don't start using that. Let's have some rules in here, Candace. Right?
You got me all fired up.
Because I'm not I'm not a liberal. I'm, if anything, an anarchist. All right? An anarcho-syndicalist. I agree with you. Yeah, decentralized government. But where I feel you and I are gonna disagree is on the level of extending compassion, love.
You want to give out hugs?
Well,
what do you mean? How would you?
Well, no, hold on a minute. You're the guest on this podcast.
Yeah. How would you give
It
out
would be
compassion?
some hugs, yes.
Tell
It would
me.
be some hugs. But but I also want to ask you, what is your solution? If we both agree that the sort of centrist left, and you can't call those people communists, you really can't. There's the difference between them is negligible. The difference between the Republicans and the Democrats is negligible in terms of a holistic global philosophy to inculcate and spread real meaningful change. All right. But you as a conservative, a believer in conservatism, what is the solution?
We want limited government. We want free markets and a society where people can
have. We've had that. We've got that now.
No,
you maniac.
Well, first off, it is working in America. This is why this is the lowest rate ever for black unemployment is right now under Donald Trump, who is allegedly the most racist president if you read The Guardian, right? Like, he's so racist. Well, he sucks at racism because black Americans are doing so much better. There's been a 400% increase in black-owned businesses because there's opportunities. He's making sure that there are actually opportunities.
Do you believe in these sort of figures?
Do I believe in them?
Yeah, those sort of figures. When people, when governments go, and we found out that the unemployment's dropped, they've just stopped welfare for a load of people. When they go 400% growth in black businesses, there'll be some state-sponsored initiative where you can start your own business.
Let me tell you something.
There'll be some bullshit thing. No. You know that. You can't trust them.
No.
If you don't, do you know what? If you don't believe in the Democrat Party, how can you believe in the Republican Party when the difference is negligible?
When have anybody ever heard me say vote Republican?
I don't know. I actually don't care.
It doesn't happen. I'm independent.
I'm an anarchist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm independent. Okay, so I vote based on the candidate, and the only candidate that I believe in is Donald Trump. And let me tell you, he's neither Republican or Democrat, which was so interesting to watch you on The View. Let me tell you why.
Russ.
I've watched you before. I used to watch your YouTube channels before I even was conservative. I used to watch all of your thoughts, and I was like, yeah, this guy's really smart. He's really got it. You understand the problem with the establishment. But what you didn't realize was that Trump was anti-establishment. Because, and you know why? You get fooled by wealth. You think wealth automatically makes you establishment. It doesn't. Obviously, he's not establishment, or he wouldn't have the entire mainstream media and 2 parties that were opposing him. He was the antithesis of all of that. And he came and he slammed all of it and he won. So I'm a Trump supporter. And people call that Trumplicans, like, you know, a portion of the Republican Party, because he had to run on either one ticket or the other. He ran as a Republican. But Trump is by no means. He calls it the swamp for a reason. And
yeah, but do you think that truly that the establishment is opposed to Trump? I know, like that media noise and static and shash. I agree with you. I read the stuff about him, but he is the president of the United States. And what do you really think he would do for vulnerable, ordinary people? And do you not think that certain a commercial and capitalist society does create huge hierarchies and pyramids that lead most people to be not most people, a significant percentage of the population to not have access to sufficient resources, and create systems that are unfair?
No, that
you don't think
it's
that.
not. If you're saying to me
unfair?
that because some person is less driven than me, I was able to accomplish more and I was rewarded for it, that's unfair. No, that's not unfair. As long as we are provided the same opportunities, which in America our system is, if you work hard and you're willing to work hard, you will be rewarded. Now,
I don't agree with that system, because some people do.
And by the way, capitalism is the only
place.
proven economic model that lifts people out of poverty. Socialism does it. It's killed 100 million people in the last 100 years.
You can't start talking about capitalism like that after they bailed out capitalism like just 10 years ago. Capitalism had the biggest lump of communism in history. Like, it just was completely state-sponsored. The whole thing's artificially inflated.
Okay,
that system, surviving by the merits that it espouses, survival of the fittest,
you're
would be
about,
long
okay, first
dead.
off, if we're talking
long
about...
dead. It died in 2008.
If we're talking about corruption and bail, I don't think they should have been bailed out. So
Nor do I.
Yeah, so I agree with you.
on.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. That's exactly right, because that's not true capitalism. That wasn't true capitalism.
So what should have happened there?
They should have let them go under.
I believe the markets
always fix themselves.
So everybody in the... Like, all of the people that paid for that bailout out of their taxes, that had their houses reclaimed, that had their houses foreclosed, they're right to be angry.
You won't get an argument from me.
Do you think that Donald Trump's going to address that? Do you
No,
think Donald Trump's going to say, right, we're going to Goldman Sachs, we're shutting down banks, we're giving these people their houses back?
Unfortunately, he wasn't the president of the United States.
Yeah, but he is now.
And
do you think...
he's not. No, he's not going to. He didn't run on that. What he is going to do is make sure...
Because his philosophy is basically in alignment with
crony
supporting...
capitalism is what we're talking about, and that's something that I'm fully against, you know? So, but I'm talking about just as an economic model. Capitalism is the only proven model that lifts people out of poverty, which is why
I don't agree with that.
Right, but that we're talking
wrong.
about when the
That's
banks
wrong.
all
It
collude.
Lift
that's
people
terrible.
Out of capitalism. It's terrible. Like, capitalism doesn't do that.
Yes, it does. That's why. Why do you think America is America? What made America America?
What are you talking about when you say America? Do you think there is one thing called America underneath a flag? Like, we're like, oh, yippee-yi-yay, this is America.
Yes,
there's the America of poor people. There's the America of rich people. There's all sorts of America. There's all sorts of experience of America.
In America, it is proven that if you make good choices, if you stay out of trouble, if you don't have children out of wedlock, and you have a job, you will...
All right, there's like moral codes.
Yeah, there is. That's it. And you'll be successful. That's it. That's all you have to do. But in the interim, you're in a part of a school system that sells you 1,000 ways that you're being victimized, and people, as opposed to going to work, are wearing pussy hats and protesting a fair and free election.
I do agree there's aspects of the education system that are hugely disempowering.
It's propaganda.
Fair enough. Like, disempowering to ordinary people. But I think we do disagree on some of the solutions. Now, see, imagine this, like you when you were like 14, you've got the anorexia and you can't get therapeutic help because you're too bloody clever. What do we do in the instance of a young woman or a girl that's suffering from anorexia and doesn't have your drive? What happens in this situation? This is a person, wouldn't you agree, that requires help, compassion, love, support, and who do you propose should provide that?
Hopefully her parents.
What if her parents...
What do you think, the government's going to just like create programs for anorexics to go to places? I mean, if an anorexic seeks help, it seeks therapeutical help, then they have to go.
Why would
to a
that be
therapist.
So bad if the government did create...
That's to me, it's ridiculous.
Why though? Why?
It's so ridiculous. The idea of
but
just...
hold on a minute. It just spent trillions on bailing out banks. Why can't we bail out some anorexics?
If we're not bailing out anorexics, it's that...
We bailed out the banks.
the government is not God. They are not the solution
I
to all
agree
your
with-
problems.
to that.
Families, the community, your friends, things of that nature. People forgot about that whole thing that happened, right? Where like, where is the girl going to go? Does she have parents? Is there anyone you can go to
possibly.
before you start worshiping the government to fix it? What am I going to do? I don't have any money in my account. Is there a government program that will fix it? What am I going to do? I have anorexia. Is there a This is what's wrong with the world. People don't remember life before government was big.
What I'm astonished by is your belief that the government is this sort of friendly, benevolent,
That's
fairy
your belief. You're the one that
godmother.
wants him
No,
to
I
grow
don't
it.
believe in that.
You're the one that thinks
I
there should
believe
be
that it's a
programs for
draconian
anorexics.
machine,
No,
empowering
and yet you want to
people,
grow it.
conditioning people.
And yet you want to grow it. You think there should
Hold
be an
on, when have I
anorexia
said-
department,
I
and then
do.
they'll walk around with their binders and they'll do inspections
Kiss
on the
me.
anorexics. Right? Seriously, you do. You're
Listen,
not ideologically
no, I don't
consistent.
agree with that. I don't. That's not what I think. I don't.
Can we
want to-
abolish the anorexic programs for government we just created?
No,
Strike it
that's-
from the list.
We're taking.
Strike it from the list.
Your taxes are going up considerably for my cuddly, cozy anorexia program. And we need a further 10% for little pudding and pie drug addicts that are so down in the dumps
too
that all they
much.
can do is
Yeah, but I
take
mean,
heroin all day long.
Community. This used to be a thing. Communities used to get
Look,
together
I agree,
in cities
but
and
do
towns.
you not think this individualistic culture is in itself destroying the principles at a spiritual, human level of community? Do you not think when people see this economic inequality, this disparity, I'm not talking about hating your little rich friend Lola Bell or whoever it was, you went round to see her nanny and weren't infuriated by it, but thought, oh, well, maybe one day I'll have my own nanny. Do you not think that economic inequality creates in a human being a sense of injustice, of unfairness? Because people, do you know what, Candace? 90% of people that are rich, do you know why they're rich? They was born rich.
Okay, I can tell you something. I think that economic disparity creates that feeling, but a fundamental understanding in economics can
Do
help
you
you
know that
conquer
the most people that are rich are born rich? It's not like there's a tiny minority of people that are like you that come from a poor background and manage to overcome it. And this is what's a problem I've noticed with a lot of great people is they sort of believe that their greatness is something that can be replicated, and I don't think it can.
I see. So I believe in the individual. You don't. That's
I
our
believe
fundamental differences.
that the primary goal of the individual should be to serve the community.
I do not believe that the primary goal of
What
an
do you think
individual.
the primary
I
goal
think
of the
that once an
individual should be?
individual
To
feels
serve
that they
the
have
individual?
served, so you're discounting the human spirit.
I'm
The
not
hu-
discounting
yes,
it. I'm
is.
saying that's all
Let me
there
ask you-
is.
Let me ask you a question. No, there's not. In a humanity, think of animals in the wild. You don't even have to go to humanity. We can just think about animals in the wild. What is our human instinct, okay? Are you going to make sure that everyone on this block is fed before you feed yourself? Do you go around and say, hey, have you had breakfast this morning? Hey, have
Listen,
you had breakfast this morning? Hey, or are you going to make sure you're eating? And if you have an excess, of course you're going to do the human condition, and our incentives are going to be to want to help
are you
people.
mental? Ink says the richest 15 people on the planet have got as much accumulative wealth as the poorest 5 billion.
But you're
that's
talking-
an excess.
No.
That's an excess.
Okay. Excuse me. First and foremost, you're talking about literally 0.00001% of the world is what
Let's
you're
get
talking
'em.
about. Okay,
Let's
but
get 'em.
and what are they preaching? What do they want? Socialism, so that nobody else has the opportunity to become what they've become. They're the ones that are
They're not
pushing
preaching
forward.
socialism.
Yes,
That's not
they
real
are.
socialism. Well,
Are you kidding? George Soros doesn't want socialist policies. Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, doesn't want socialist policies. They want to make sure that no one else has the opportunity to get to
we
where they
need to
got.
discuss our language, me and you, because
We do.
Here's what my socialism looks like. Take Jeff Bezos' wealth from him, except for a reasonable stipend for him to live on. Something like, he can have 10 million a year or something. Tax Amazon to the ground.
So the rich people pay for 85% of all of the taxes. You think they should pay for even more?
Do you think
That's fact.
statistically
That's
true?
fact. Yes.
Don't look at me with
I'm telling
that's
you,
fact
that's a fact.
face.
The top 10% pay for 85% of all the taxes. When people say they're going to raise their taxes more, I'm just like, how much more? Should we just say just pay for all the taxes?
I say this, that there is no, when you're about to use an example from the natural world, and then
I'm talking about
you
America,
backed
by the
off
way.
it,
I
didn't
forgot
you?
that I'm in. No, I was gonna say the instinct when you're in the natural world is that you feed your family first. You're not the idea that socialism tries to create goes
we are
against
no longer
human.
in the natural world, are we? We're in a world of sort of accumulation and excess, and I don't think it's even working. I wonder about sort of, look, I want, because you could say, where do you draw the line? Because look at me, I've got money now, I'm not poor anymore, and I'm not going, right, I'll just take everything that's, the thing that I do agree with when I see like sort of right-wing commentators talk, like they talk about people that are, in inverted commas, from the left, and they go, well, why don't you put some refugees in your house? Why don't you give up your money? And the reason is because people are selfish, and in all of us, there is a kind of battle between, like, some of my impulses, Candace, are, I just want pleasure and fun, and I don't care about anything except myself. That's in me. That's in me, and it's strong. But I personally think I don't feel good when I live that way. There are consequences for me, and there are consequences for others. So I kind of want to live within systems that encourage collective and communal values. That instead
theft. We're talking about theft.
No, we're not talking about
demanding
theft.
that people give up their stuff is theft, but it sounds pretty when you say encourage, incentives. No, when the government comes and demands that I give to someone else, that's theft.
You keep translating what I'm saying.
I'm helping
you. No, you're not helping me.
He's talking about theft.
You're translating what I'm saying into rhetoric that you can argue with, creating straw men of my words as we go, so you can kick them over.
Is theft.
No, that's. I'm not saying that. I'm not espousing the values of big government. I'm not saying that there's any political party that currently exists that in any way represents my views. I'm just asking if in politics, both personally and collectively, there's room for a little more compassion and love. And whilst I agree with your that there is something easy to fetishize about individual achievements in your own case or wherever we see greatness, we can't take that example of the ability of the individual to overcome adversity to condemn people that haven't been able to. Like, where is there a role then for compassion and kindness? I'm not saying let's create a big government and take away
not in politics. So my thing is that the conversation should be completely separate. Americans give $500 billion in charity every single year. Okay, it has been proven that when you lower the tax rate, when you government stays out of our paycheck, we actually give more. That we're inclined to. If you have more money and you're able to do it, of course you want to give and you want to help. When the government is saying we're going to tax your business, if you're successful, you're going to get taxed more. What is the incentive for you to want to jump and build a business if you know that you're going to be penalized for it? You're going to be penalized for success. That's why we believe in limited government. When I say we, obviously I work for an organization, Turning Point USA.
Oh yeah, what's that all about?
It's a winning
Turning Point.
Turning Point
what
USA. We're launching it in the UK, TP UK. That's what this whole trip is about. It sounds good,
hold on a minute. You're launching Turning Point, and like Turning Point is what? What do you want us to turn to?
It's conservative principles taught in the school system, because the kids are learning this lolly-dolly merry-go-round. The world's going to be purple, and we're all going to have lollipops in the school systems, and then possibly from your podcast. I guess I haven't watched enough episodes. And it's just not. It's the truest, the economic model of letting people find success because they're willing to work hard. If you don't want to work hard, you shouldn't be rewarded. I don't believe in that. I don't believe, well, what about the person who doesn't have your drive?
Why should economic systems govern the way that we live our lives? Why is there not room for people to be different? Why is it that a person's value and worth should be distilled into
That's called the natural market. You can't make that go away.
That's not called the natural market.
Yes, it is. You can't make that go away, no matter what. Tell me in the history of the world where there hasn't been some give and some take. You can't make that go away. There's no magic wand that you can wave that's going to make human incentives and what happens in humanity go away. Doesn't matter how rich or how poor society is. There's going to be give, there's going to be take. People are going to create natural markets. I have 3 apples, I'll give you 2 apples if you give me this. I mean, that it just happens. This is the way the world works.
Yeah, I appreciate that we have certain natural impulses to trade and to cooperate. I suppose where you and I are arguing vociferously and passionately, Candace, is on the front of look, firstly, I disagree with you that there are no social and economic factors that contribute, for example, to the phenomena of poverty and persecution of African Americans or people of, like in this country. I think the experience of being a Muslim is probably difficult because of the way Islam is reported about. That doesn't mean that, like I don't see that there's this thing called terrorism, but that in itself is somewhat underwritten by the colonial project. It's like you sort of deny that history has happened.
No, I'm not denying that it's happened. I'm just denying that I live in history. I don't live in history. I didn't go through slavery. We live in the present.
That's a very important spiritual principle.
This is what people harp on. Then this is why they want you to focus on this when you're in school. Look at what happened. That's why you're oppressed. No, it's not. Black people were actually outpacing white Americans in the 1950s under Jim Crow in terms of economic growth until we implemented the welfare programs. We were outpacing them. There were businesses because our families were together. There was the divorce rates isn't what it was. People were married. Our families were together. We had jobs. We were starting businesses. My grandfather did better than my father did. Okay, my grandfather grew up in a segregated South. How did he do that? Because there wasn't all of this crazy nonsense. He never took welfare. There wasn't all this government regulation. He started his own business, and that is how you create a successful individual. My grandfather never ever once considered himself to be a victim. He doesn't. He doesn't.
I don't think
he doesn't
you can
play the
take
victim
these
game.
anecdotal examples of individual
No, I'm not.
excess.
I'm not. But I'm telling you that
turn
this
it into a system of government. I don't think you can realistically argue that the removal of welfare will make people go, I'm going to become a go-getter now, because I think there are.
But you can argue because it's not anecdotal. It's a fact. You can't argue it. Black people were doing better under Jim Crow economically than we're doing today. How is that possible? Explain it to me. I want to learn.
I think the same way that you're saying that people have an automatic impulse to trade, I think we also have an automatic impulse to help one another.
Yes.
And I think that what maybe has happened over the last, 100 years, perhaps it's part of, sort of a post-colonial thing, is that there's been such disparity, such bifurcation of worlds, that there's like an impoverished class that are forgotten and I would say deeply underserved. For me, I'm not qualified to talk on the issue of race, but for me, intuitively, a lot of what you say is, God, I know that some black people are really offended by it and hurt by it and feel that it's a denial of
Why aren't you qualified to talk
experience.
about race?
Because I've had no personal experience of being a black person. No one's ever used the N-word.
Doesn't mean you can't. You're not qualified to talk about race.
Yeah, no, I'd talk about anything. As a matter of fact, 90% of the things I say, I'm just making up as I go along. I'm sure that comes across. But my fact is the same way that I don't know about what the female experience is. This is what I know what it's like to be. I do know what it's like to feel oppressed. I do know what it's like to feel not heard. I do know what it's like to feel vulnerable. And I do feel that as a person that can be quite rapacious, quite greedy, quite individualistic, that when I live within systems that encourage those aspects of my nature by saying, look, you make your own luck in life. If you're willing to work hard, you can become anything no matter where you're from. In a sense, my life journey has been that. I come from an ordinary working class family in Essex, single parent family, and now, whoop-de-doo, I'm rich. But that has not left me thinking, yeah, fuck you, everyone else.
But it's not F you. So I want to drive this point home because it is, you used to be more on the Hollywood scene in LA. This is why when these leftist politicians want to sell these ideas that are essentially just going to make sure that nobody has an opportunity but everybody's married to the government, they turn to Hollywood because it's so easy to make you guys feel guilty.
I'm not them guys
anymore, but it's so easy to make people like you. You could still say that you're in the sphere of influencers, Hollywood influencers. You started your career as an actor, right? I mean, so you could still say it's so easy to make them feel guilty because most of them aren't really politically savvy. They can't have even the discussion that we're having. They have no idea what's going on, but they know that they feel so guilty about being wealthy that I can come to you and I can say to you.
Why do you think people feel guilty about being wealthy?
Because people make them feel guilty about being wealthy and they don't understand economics. They don't realize that they provide jobs, okay? When Kim Kardashian became Kim Kardashian, should she feel guilty about that? How many people are now employed because of the Kardashian empire? Look. How many people are employed because of Twitter? Because Jack Dorsey created Twitter. And they feel guilty about it. Why do you feel... You provided opportunities for people
Candace,
to get jobs.
I think as human beings, we should aspire to greater goals than simply fulfilling a predetermined economic role. But worshipping continually at the altar of finance. We must do better.
You think I worship finance?
We must look for a better solution. I don't know if you do. You believe in God, right? And what is a belief in God if it's not essentially the belief that underneath hatred is love and underneath the individual is oneness, and that what we do to one another we do to ourselves and vice versa, that we need to create systems that are reflective of our benevolence,
that's where we disagree.
of our kindness.
That's a disagreement.
Well, what is your belief in God?
If you want to be good and you want to be benevolent, you can exercise that in your personal lives. You and I are discussing politics. What you've done is that you've blended in your mind that politics and goodness and oneness all should go together. Hell no. Okay, there is no such thing as a good government. That's why we want it limited. The idea that government is not going to become corrupt when you exercise these practices of goodness, and that's what they do. They sell to the public. We're going to be good for you, and we're going to extract all of your dollars, and everyone is going to be equally poor.
Incredibly naive thing to say, and I'm startled that you've said it. The reason that they want government to be impeded is because it's easier to make money when there's huge deregulation. That's why there was the 2008 crash, because the previous 20 years there'd been loads loads and loads of deregulation under the Clintons. Like for me, they all end up in the same basket.
Right.
All of them.
So you're admitting that government is corrupt, and yet you think that government is a solution to solve corrupt government.
I'm talking about different. I'm not talking about. It's lovely to talk to you, because I actually think that because we are seemingly from so far apart, we have an odd unity in that we both agree that government as it currently exists is what do I want to say, unacceptable, ineffective,
correct,
negative, malevolent. No
but
problem
you think
there.
the solution
Completely
is
agree.
a different kind of government.
And you think the solution is to give yet more power to the already powerful. I think that government only function as administrators
to the individual.
for transnational corporations.
To the individual. No, I never said give more.
What is the individual? Where's the individual?
More power to the individual. I don't want to give up. I don't want to give up all of my rights to a government that's arbitrary, that's going to tell me how to live, to tell me what to say.
I don't think anyone's going to take away your rights. How could they?
But
what I'm interested in, I don't think you need to call anybody. You're enough as you are. What I'm interested in is what I believe is that government are the sort of bureaucratic arm of corporations, transnational corporations. And I think, look at sort of any government that tried to impose serious restrictions on the way that Amazon trade and the way that Amazon are taxed would suffer. We can't do that in this country. Like when there's talk of a sort of a more left-wing government getting into power, the city flexes its muscles, everyone starts to brick it. I mean, shit themselves, get sort of terrified.
Right.
So, for me, centralized bipartisan democratic governments as they currently exist are meaningless and ineffectual. I completely agree with you there. But my concern is that we need to find new ways of curbing the power of big business. I'm not talking about some lovely bloody florist making their way in life, or people that are entrepreneurial
but
and
I
inventive.
agree with you, but we have laws for that. That is limited government.
They're not working, are they?
But now that's why we like Trump, because he's disruptive, because he's talking about it. We're talking about Google should be broken up. It's a monopoly. I don't agree with monopolies, right? Google is a monopoly. It's a worldwide monopoly. I have said it vocally 1,000 times. Google should be broken up. Amazon is problematic. These are issues that Trump is tackling. That's why the establishment is attacking
him. Are you
sure,
Candace? You're not taking advantage of my Hollywood naivety.
They've got Mark Zuckerberg, testifying. He's starting to attack this because he understands that what you're talking about is real. The left and the right combined, right? And that's why I say I'm not a Republican. I don't want to be associated with the swamp Republicans, or the leftists who pretend that they care about people, but in reality, they're just extracting dollars and power for themselves as they grow government to make sure that just the bureaucrats enrich their pockets. That's what Trump is disrupting. It's hard for people to process that because Trump is wealthy, but that is what he's doing. I mean, if you look at every policy he's made in terms of all the action that he's implemented, that is why there is a war on him, an all-out war in terms of the media. The same is happening in other countries. These sort of populist movements are starting to arise, and I support them in Italy and Brazil.
Trump is wealthy, like most people who are wealthy, because the vagina that he emerged from belonged to a wealthy person.
And then he did very well on top of that. So I mean, to discredit what he's done and what he's built is.
No, I think it's good. Although he has been bankrupt.
He didn't just maintain.
Several times.
That's right. Most people fail before they find success.
You really like him.
Yeah, no, but most people fail.
Why do you like him so much?
But no, because this is what I don't like either. People say because you fail. No, it's about how many times you get up.
I think he's pretty funny.
He's hilarious. I mean, the people that can't enjoy Trump, I feel bad for them. He's pointedly hilarious. He says things that everybody's thinking, and he's calling out people that have been impossibly corrupt. For him to say lock her up, Hillary should be in prison. Most Americans feel that way. What she did to Haiti alone, what the Clinton Foundation did to Haiti alone, they should all be locked up.
And no fans of the Clintons, I'll tell you that now.
But he had the balls to say it. What politician? Everybody else is, but it's the Clinton, it's the dynasty, it's the Bushes, it's, we can't say these things. Trump just says it. They're all corrupt.
So you like that. You like these as sort of a rabble-rouser. But the thing that would concern me is that I feel that our social systems will need to look beyond charitable handouts. I wonder, a world where sort of your ideology was realised, as I'm starting to understand it as I listen to you, like the sort of the individual, unimpeded, unimpaired, reaching for Nietzschean glory. What happens to people that are not endowed with the facilities to achieve that? Because some, we are existing on a spectrum, as you say. Some people just need a bit of help and a bit of love. To tell the truth, if I hadn't been helped to get into a treatment centre, I'd still be on drugs. If I didn't have other people helping me to stay clean one day at a time, I think I might relapse. I'm invisibly held by relationships to people that are kind and compassionate to me. And if it wasn't for those relationships,
If the government shrinks, does that your friends just go
I'm
away?
not about the government, though. Although you just said that someone's going to have to break up these monopolies, and I don't know who you think is going to do that. Goldman Sachs? Who's going to break up these?
Limited government. That's what this company, our country, was founded upon.
Did you just accidentally call it a company?
I did, because you said Goldman Sachs.
Did you?
I did, by accident.
Sorry, we're keeping that. America is the best company in the
ever.
world.
Yeah.
But like, Britain was essentially just the sort of a front for the colonising powers of the East India Tea Company.
Right. So I believe in limited government. I believe that government should come, because we learned from the late 19th century, early 20th century, that if businesses run, and they'll eventually create monopolies, and that's what we're seeing, I think, happen with Google. And the function of the government is to protect us against that, so that there's opportunities for the little guy and small businesses to get in and to compete with these bigger companies. So I
do you think that can ever work on a global level now, with the sort of the way that trade operates, and with there being such powerful monoliths already in place? Will those powers ever yield any of their potency? What would make Google, Amazon, the Silicon Valley giants, the energy giants, the forces that we know were behind the sort of the recent Middle Eastern oil wars? What will make those companies yield some of their power? What would do that? What force could oppose that? Only the people. And under what banner do the people unite? It's like it feels to me that you're taking away the capacity for human beings to unite under a... But I don't agree with divisive policy of you're this gender, you're that colour. I think we are one, and we should look for ways to find common connections. I've got probably more in common with you, even though there's so much different about us politically,
right,
as we believe in that we're both mouthy individuals.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and I agree with that, and I think that that's an important discussion to have. But in terms of how I use my voice and what I'm talking about, I'm in the realm of politics, and I think that the problem is that people want to insert compassion into the political realm too much.
But politics is just management. What is politics if it's not about helping human beings gain access to resources?
No, it's
what is it then?
I really think that what should be the function of a politician? What do you think that is?
You tell me. You're the bloody expert. I mean, tipping point or turning point or whatever it's called. Go on, what should it be?
Right. I mean, I think it's gotten to the point now that it just becomes about them trying to enrich their own pockets.
But what should it be?
I think it should be they are there to protect the rights of the people that have already been established. They're supposed to be representing their constituents.
They're doing okay, the people that are all bloody established. What about the people that need help?
Making sure that their rights are protected, that they're able to create, and that they have opportunities, and the idea that they'll still have opportunities if you grow government.
Is there
has
anything
been
about
disproven
socialism
so many
you like?
Nothing. It's killed 100 million people in the last 100 years. It's jarring to me that we have people that are running around saying that it's good again, especially in Europe. I mean, you guys really should understand that socialism doesn't work. I mean,
and fascism,
what's it going
we're
to
giving
take?
that another go as
really,
well.
like, what is it going to take for Europe? Like, how many times do we have to get the phone call in America? Hey,
don't you dare!
They're doing socialism again.
Where you were late to the last war. You're causing this one
because we're like, really, guys? Again, we're doing it again. Like, no, it's different. This is different. Jeremy Corbyn's like a democratic socialist who says a lot of anti-Semitic things. It's like, really, how many times do you guys have to, what's it going to take for you guys to learn your lesson? I mean, that's how I feel, at least in America. And I love my Brits. Look, we fight, we end the wars together. So that's why we're doing TPUK, because it's like, all right, it's getting a little crazy again. We might have to step in and insert some like normal conservative principles again into the dialogue, because we've got it's gone crazy. The socialists, it doesn't work.
It's not gone crazy. There is no meaningful socialism at any level of power.
Yes,
anywhere.
It's cloaked. Listen,
anywhere. What's it cloaked in?
What do you
Capitalism.
mean? What do you mean anywhere? Venezuela. What do you mean?
You love this, don't you? You're always banging on about Venezuela.
Yeah.
There's only about 15 people live there. Don't you dare go
because they're all fleeing to the United States. They're all fleeing to the United States. The average citizen has lost 18 pounds. But over here, you guys are like, but maybe.
With all respect to Venezuela and the Venezuelan people, I don't think that the experiments with the socialism in inverted commas in Venezuela are having any meaningful impact on the American economy or the global economy or geopolitical power structures. So what I'm interested in is why all this that Macron, fascist.
He's a total
fascist.
moron. No, he's a globalist. He's not a fascist. He's a globalist. Okay, and And all of these people that stood up and said awful things about Trump are now realizing that everything that he was saying was essentially right, and his people, think about what's going on in France is fascinating. The far left and the far right are together rioting in the streets.
I love that.
Think about that. And why? Because of these things like, what was the tipping point? They were hiking prices to protect the environment. Again, they're going to tell you that they're doing something to protect you, but they're just finding fun ways to extract dollars. And now there's no jobs and people are unemployed. Everyone's on welfare and government programs. And on top of that, that's what happens in socialism every single time.
So you see Macron as a socialist, which is just bizarre to me because he's a former Goldman Sachs employee.
France has been proliferating a welfare state since the 1970s, okay? And that's what it is. People don't work in France. They're lazy. And that's what happens in a socialist model. Everyone becomes lazy because you're going to say, if you become rich, I'm going to tax you. Then why the hell am I going to work?
I don't think
we'll all sit back and wait for the government to give us handouts. Oh, wait, that can't happen because now there's no one left to tax. Everybody's equally. You guys are right. Socialism does bring equality. Equal poverty.
Candace!
For socialism, if you want equality, they will give you equal poverty.
Look, I've been a bit glib and a bit silly at several points during this conversation because I find you very charming and interesting to talk to. But I must say, in all seriousness, that you cannot cite any of these countries as examples of socialism or socialism's failures because Macron is existing comfortably within the framework of the kind of neoliberal failings that are bringing about the current mass discontentment that has brought about, Brexit and Trump. And I think that neither Brexit nor Trump will address or aid ordinary people one jot. Not that I disagree with people for voting for Brexit or for voting for Trump, because I agree with them that things weren't going well for ordinary people and I understand their dissatisfaction. But what I don't see how the solution to the problems of ordinary people will ever be to give more power to the already powerful. I wouldn't confront you hugely over the government, because I think you and I both do not trust government. I'm beginning to work out where people from the left and where the right can collaborate, collude and agree. But obviously the main problem for me is that I feel that all politics ultimately has to be an expression of human goodness. And whilst it is ultimately about pragmatism, what is the point in being pragmatic if we are not simultaneously being loving and beautiful? What is our aim? What is the optimum? What are we trying to achieve? Okay. And surely that must be a fair and just world where the brilliant get to thrive and the vulnerable are loved and taken care of, assuming that there are still categories such as the vulnerable and the brilliant.
I love everything you said because it sounds totally utopian, but it's just not pragmatic.
Well, that's what people say.
Right, and it is. So here,
prove me wrong. That? Conservative people.
Right.
Because
so
for
prove me wrong.
People,
show me, create a government for me right now. What are you going to do?
Oh, all right, love.
Let's do it.
Just create a government.
Let's do it right now. No, I mean seriously, because this is how socialism gets sold, because it sounds good. Hey, and everyone.
I don't think that was socialism.
But
I don't think that was socialism.
That is a socialist. No, I'm telling you, that's a socialist pitch. That's what these socialists run around saying. The Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes. I just want a world where everybody, the minimum wage is $30 an hour, and I don't know who's going to pay for it. It doesn't matter. We're not going to talk practically. It's going to feel good. We're going to just tax the rich, and we're going to take from this person. You can only take from the rich for so much. Essentially, what you have to focus on is creating opportunities for every single person to become rich.
Do you not see systemic inequality and a massive philosophical disjunct in the fact that when all these systems that you say are going to take care of us, that are going to create trickle-down wealth, that when they did ultimately, inevitably fail, as Karl Marx said they would, that when they do fail, they are bailed out by the people.
That's
the people bail them out. Ordinary people. So why should
I
ordinary people ever trust those systems?
They shouldn't. But why do you keep telling us that we should grow government?
I'm not telling you to grow government. That's not what I'm saying. I actually believe in decentralization. I do think that we need programs to help people need help. No, I don't think it need. I think we need to reframe that.
Let's do it. We're building your government.
Community.
Okay, but that's a conservative position. That's a conservative position. We're saying all of these programs.
These communities may need some assistance.
Right. I think you just don't realize that you're a conservative.
No, listen, you. Don't
I
you
think,
ever
I think,
say
I
that
think
to
you're
me
a conservative
in my garage again.
because you're identifying the same problems and you're agreeing that the solution
I don't
cannot be
think
more
you
government.
realise that
but
you
back
are a
socialist
socialist
candidates.
hippie utopian.
But you back socialist candidates, which makes no sense. Everything
I
you
don't
say,
back them.
It lines
Do you know
up.
the biggest trouble I got in was saying I don't vote for anyone because I think it's all total bullshit and the power ends up in the hands of the same people anyway, and it was as if I'd kicked a football into the Prime Minister's
Guardian get you?
greenhouse. Yeah,
Right.
the government, the Guardian weren't happy.
Such a joke.
As a matter of fact, the Guardian were probably the worst.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
that's
a
where
joke.
that sort of changed my
They're
perspective.
just propaganda. Yeah, they're just literally propaganda.
But I think but why I would say that the differences between some of these things that we're arguing about, the distinctions are negligible. I think that what's required is a kind of radicalism, radical change. But what makes me nervous about some of the stuff you say, Candice, is it's kind of lack of empathy. I can't help but see that teenage girl with anorexia not being treated with love and care and nurture, which is what
I don't
you
turn to my
deserve.
government for that. You get what
I'm not saying turn to your government. I'm saying create societies that make it more likely that people feel loving and compassionate.
I don't think that's the role of the government. I think that's the role of the family. So if this discussion was not about politics and we started talking about family and raising kids, I would suddenly become so compassionate.
In post-industrial, post-technological, capitalist societies, the family is no longer an all-powerful unit. There is already such massive inequality. I'm not clever enough to argue with you about whether or not big government or centralisation is as problematic as you say. But what I do know is unimpeded capitalist power is the biggest contributor to the problems we have in the world.
Okay, actually, no. So socialism has killed. It's not capitalism that killed 100 million people in the last 100 years. Okay,
we don't know because it's harder it's harder to curate that information. We don't know how many people are killed in the various colonial wars that America's been engaged with ever since the Second World War. All of those economic wars, all those ideological wars.
You could say a component of that is because, and I will agree with you here, the idea that you're going to go and you don't have natural resources because, I don't know, environmentally friendly kids don't want you to do fracking or whatever it is, and then you go and you say, well, here's an oil-rich country and we're going to go and we're going to invade and we're going to take things over. I disagree with all of that.
Utopianism's got to be the aim. You can't be seriously saying that
utopianism should be the aim. Did you just say?
Yes, it should be the aim. It should be the aim.
Literally, like that's.
Why? Where else would be the aim?
We're in
hell on earth.
We're in like
Is that what you're trying to create?
Willy Wonka land.
Where we all
it can't happen. It can't happen. Human beings are always going to be human beings. Since the biblical times, we're always going to have.
The point of the Bible is that we will transcend. That man will transcend. That we can get beyond our primal desires. Right. Our primal desires that you're trying to turn into systems: greed, jealousy, conservatism.
No. It's the opposite. I'm saying you have to acknowledge that this exists. This is why it's foolish when people
say, give
up all of your rights to the government. And then what happens? What happened to Venezuela when they gave up all the rights and they sold them this utopian concept that Russell Brand loves, and there's going to be flowers in Venezuela and Skittles, and we're all going to go to Willy Wonka every day. Yay! And what happened? Oh, we found out what happens when you give all your money to the government keeps it. That's what they found in Venezuela. Because you know why? Because the government is governed by human beings, and human beings are greedy and selfish and terrible human beings.
Oh my God, that's not all they are.
No, it's not.
Thought this.
But when you give them all of your money, you're going to see what happens. And that is what happens time
What's going to happen to these untrammeled individuals, Candice? These untrammeled individuals that have got no regulation. What, they're going to be different from the Venezuelan government?
Limited government, when their incentives are not to go line their own pockets in government, and they know that they have term limits and that they literally are there to serve the people. Okay,
I'm very interested.
Then allows them to do their damn job and look at these companies and say, is this now a monopoly? Yes, it is. Break up Google.
Well, we agree on that as well, as long as it still works, because I do need it.
I have to
mostly for my own name. Now, Candice, I just need a search engine called the Russell Brand search engine. That'll be enough for me.
I don't even need Google, right?
As long as I have that, you can break up that monopoly.
Yeah.
Candice, there's another thing I'm going to ask you. That thing you just said, mate, about like human beings are greedy and cruel and
components of humanity.
Yeah, well, you said that for me, when you said that, I thought that was very telling. I feel that is ultimately what you believe. I think you think human beings are ugly.
No, I don't.
I do think that.
Well, first off,
what do you think they are then?
First off, human beings, I'll ask you a question. Do you think we're more good or more evil?
Good. I think human beings are beautiful.
Okay, so you think we're born pure and good and wonderful?
No,
You have a small child.
Listen,
right?
as Solzhenitsyn
You
said,
have to teach human beings good.
listen, the culture is definitely a factor, but this is my point. You've asked me a question. Please allow me to answer
Yes,
it.
sir.
Solzhenitsyn says the line between good and evil runs not through nations, religions, or creeds, but through every human heart. Because I know that there is darkness in me.
Right.
I know there is selfishness and greed and like libido, life force, not necessarily a bad thing, but lust, for example. I know all these things exist in me. So I need to exist within communities and systems that acknowledge that I am flawed and that I can fail, but encourage the better parts of my nature. For me, that is not a kind of venal, economically driven system that rewards a kind of the pursuit of excess. I don't think we can ever be fulfilled by commodity. I don't think we can ever be fulfilled through acquisition. I think that our goals must become spiritual.
But I agree with that.
I'm not in favor of creating banal Stalinist massacre factories, but I also resent and reject the illusion of a commercial capitalist state where people are being underserved spiritually, people are neglected and cut off, and people are, oh, do you know we're richer than we've ever been, and statistically things are yippee-yi-yay. Well, I live in this world and I feel a lot of dissatisfaction, a lot of pain. I've been rich, I've been poor, I've been in both of those worlds, and I sense that there is a something spiritual that is not being served, that is being neglected, and I feel a huge part of that is living in a world where the supreme ideals are economically driven, where there is a huge unfairness, where we are ignoring the problems of the earth. And to hear you talk about sort of fracking and simply because it is another way of serving conservative or capitalist goals, that concerns me.
Well, no, I brought it up because you brought up the Middle East and the conquest that were going over there because people wanted their resources.
Yeah, because conservatism used to be about conserve the planet.
Right.
First and foremost, we've got to live on it.
I don't think that, not in America. We're conserving
It
the
means
founding
it
principles.
here. It means it here. It used to be sort of like about conserving. We've got to look after the land.
I think you guys care a little more about the environment here than in America. We have obviously the environmentalists, but I think probably stronger here. I've noticed. I'm not saying there's one way, one is wrong or one is right. I'm just making a note here.
But how could we have disconnected ourselves from the land and from nature? But what you're talking about is that
you think that all that exists is politics. Take a yoga class. You want some spiritual balance after you go to work? You go take a yoga class. You have the money to do that, to go sit and do kumbaya and do all of that stuff. I like it all.
Don't be
family.
So cynical.
It's not cynical.
That is
family.
cynical.
I like it all.
I
do
do
Bikram yoga.
Class.
I love yoga. I love spiritualism. I told you I originally found you because you were talking about spiritualism. I was on YouTube, and I remember it just being very green. I don't know what show it was. I've never seen that show before. But you were talking about spiritual fulfillment, and I agree with you on all of those things. Where we disagree is that you don't seem to think that both of those can live at the same time. Like, if capitalism exists and spiritualism dies. No, it doesn't. You can be spiritual and you can like capitalism. You like it. A capitalist says, I like spiritualism so much, I'm going to open a yoga studio.
No, that is turning everything into a commodity.
No,
Seeing that the ultimate end of everything is to turn, and I'm guilty of this. As soon as I'm the kind of person, I make up a beautiful song for my daughter, and I think, my God, I should write a children's book about this. Yeah. You know what I mean? I have that instinct. I am an entrepreneurial person. I am an individualist, but I feel that these impulses in me can be better utilized if they are in the service of others.
So then share it. That's what I do. I get spiritual fulfillment when black kids from the ghettos and the hood write to me and say, thank you so much. Finding your perspective has transformed my life. Right. And they say, because I just put out something that I genuinely believe in, and it's backed in my heart and it's backed in my spirit. Now, what fulfills you might be something different, but you determining that what people should like and what should drive, what fulfills them or what should be compassionate, those are words that are subjective. They're not objective. Spiritualism is subjective.
I think that's true, and I think I can understand why young black children would be inspired by a powerful woman like you who communicates brilliantly and is so strong and successful. But I would imagine it may be disheartening to hear you disavow the impact of social, historical and cultural influences on the plight of individuals and individual families. To extract that, I think, is cruel.
But I don't. I talk about it all the time.
In doing it, you're condemning people. In saying that the individual is in charge of their own destiny, you are the shadow of that is people that are not successful.
Personal responsibility.
are to blame for their lack of their own success.
I truly believe if people wake up and they understand that they're in control of their own destiny, that they will be in control of their own destiny.
I think that is a good point. I think that's a good point. But I also agree that there is the obligation of all of us to care for, protect, reach out to one another. And I feel like I'm concerned by that. I'm concerned that you feel that, because it's like, for me, where is the love?
What do you mean? There's love in my personal life. I don't feel bad for people that are lazy and looking for excuses. So if that feels cold-hearted to you,
I think it does. It sounds terribly cold-hearted.
It's
very cold-hearted.
Let's get to the core of it. Most people are lazy. Okay,
I'm lazy.
They'd much rather. Yeah, there you go. So they'd much rather
I find
sit
it hard
around
to
and
get up.
get success, and then you know what? When you get to a certain age and you realize you've accomplished nothing,
I'd rather
then
just
all
have
of a sudden,
some heroin and just masturbate. I really would.
I mean, but most people are lazy. It's true. I'd rather be in bed sleeping sometimes, but I get up and I do stuff because I realize that I have to be a functioning human being. But
you're different.
But here's the thing. You telling me that I have to exercise compassion and understanding that people are lazy because they woke up one day and they're 27 and they realize they've accomplished nothing, so they turn to videos that tell them that it's not their fault, it's somebody else's. It's the white man, it's the rich man, it's the tall man, it's the short man, right? I don't care about any of that. I am telling you that personal responsibility is really the key to unlocking life.
You cannot deny. Right.
Yes, are there catastrophic things that happen, and do you exercise compassion in those moments? That's why I give to charity, right?
That's not going to be enough, because that...
What do you want me to do? Take in the lazy people in my home? I've already got a cat. She's pretty fucking lazy.
Fucking hell, woman. Because what I'm saying is... What am I saying to you? What am I saying to you?
What are you saying to me?
I'm saying to you that you are misusing your power, that you should be using your power to bring other people up.
That's what I'm doing.
And I feel that to deny that there is economic disparity, that racial inequality is part of the story, that historically there has been a component of the male oppression of the female. I agree with that. No, I agree that the world can change, and I agree with the power of the individual.
We're agreeing. Everything that you just said, I don't deny. I acknowledge that there's economic disparity because I tell them every day the reasons why is what I teach them. There's economic disparity. Don't be so foolish to believe it's because your skin is black. It's because we are disproportionately taking handouts from the government. We are disproportionately married to the government, and we have bought into our own victim mentality, okay? Because we're taking advice from fucking LeBron James about politics and voting in people that want to do harm to the black community. Plain and simple. Most black people don't even know their own history. You sit down and you have black people that are advocating for Planned Parenthood, and nobody's talking about the quiet black genocide that's taking place in America right now, because our birth rate has completely stagnated, and we're the only ones. 61% of all new births are Latino. So when the Democrats say open borders, what they're really saying is votes, because the black people are not going to be able to stay in our party much longer. So let them know that Planned Parenthood was created by an avowed racist, Margaret Sanger, who said that her purpose was to exterminate the black race. She said black people should be exterminated like weeds. Most black people don't know that, and yet they go out and they say conservatives are crazy because they want to defund Planned Parenthood. I want defunded because the black birth rate has stagnated. Okay, so I'm actually all about black empowerment, which is why when people actually find me long form and listen to what I say, it clicks, and they say, "Oh my God!" And then they research Margaret Sanger, and then they research the black birth rate, and they realize that we are paying politicians to tear apart our families and to make sure that we don't have a place in America.
I agree with some of the things that you are saying, but what I don't understand is how this information can neatly absolve or resolve itself at the point of, and that's why Donald Trump's a good thing. That's so like easy. A crazy conclusion.
So easy. It's so easy. That's how I got into this, is because Donald Trump was a thing. Donald Trump has done more for the black community than certainly any other predecessor Democrat presidents had done before him. You know, you have Bill Clinton, who was hailed as a black presidential hero. The first black president is what they called Bill Clinton. He also locked up more black men than any president in the history of the United States. That's a fact. He put in place the 3 strikes laws. That's a fact. And then you have LBJ, hailed as a hero in our textbooks. He's the one that implemented the welfare state, and he called it the nigger bill. You know, he literally called the Civil Rights Act the nigger bill. Black people don't know that. Now it's all available on the internet. So all they have to do is hear what I say, and they'll do that after they watch his podcast and do research. And they go, why is the education system lying to me? Why do I think Bill Clinton's a good person after what he did to Haiti?
Candace, I don't disagree with you. I mean, like, I think more broadly, I can see how you meet a lot of your goals by condemning apparently left centrist politicians who I've already told you, I don't see the distinction between left and right within the limited framework of conventional political
that's fair.
Dialectic as as meaningful. Yeah, go on, have some stuff to eat. Perhaps the problem is actually that you're hungry. I think what's essentially happened is a hungry person is coming here and is taking it out on the most vulnerable members of society, the victims, me and the black community, and we've had enough. We've had it up to here. Me and the black community. We're sick of this.
Now you sound like every leftist politician. It's great. I'm empowering for black people. All they have to do is listen to me. Yeah, no,
but the goal of your empowerment, it ends in a sort of a rather unpleasant individualistic message that leaves behind, that doesn't include the possibility that some people's social history and personal history has left them impaired and unable to compete in a system that prizes certain assets, certain personal attributes above others. Not everyone's like that. We need a culture that can accommodate all people, because all people exist and all people do have rights. And if you whilst I feel that, I can see the logic in, what you're saying about, the patriarchy stuff and all that, all we need to do is quickly look at who has the most wealth, who has the most power, who has the most influence. The data is available.
Right.
Like something like that. When you say, if like 15 people have got as much wealth as the poorest 5 billion people, that's not minor. That's a serious systemic problem. We could solve a great many problems by simply removing and redistributing that wealth. But even that's not enough. I'm talking about changing systems more broadly. Where we do agree hugely is on decentralisation and the breakup of monopolies. But what I think is the biggest distinction you and I have is your belief that people are governed by selfish impulses, and my belief that people are ultimately good, and that we should create systems and communities and values that encourage our virtue rather than usher us subtly towards either nihilism or selfishness. And I think that that's what you are doing.
No, that's
what you're
wrong.
doing.
So
and
what
I
I'm
think
doing
you're
is
better than that.
I know. I'm preventing people from falling into your logic, because the easiest people to take advantage of are people that believe what you believe. Because then all they do is to take somebody like George Soros or Jeff Bezos to say, this is why they want socialism. Because it says, all of you guys are going to stay poor, but we're going to sell to you that we're going to fix all of your problems and you're going to give up all of your rights to us. And that's what happens. That's what happens every single time it's implemented. Do you not realise
that within an economic system that has limited resources available, not everyone can become rich anyway?
You think there's finite resources?
What, on a finite planet? Yes.
No, but like once certain amount of people are rich, nobody else can get rich? Because that's wrong.
Hold on a second. Then why do you not think
the
that there's
world is changing?
You don't believe that there's a stagnation and stasis in where wealth is accumulated and where wealth is held? Do you not see that there are dynasties throughout history?
See, you're buying into the myth that because somebody got rich, somebody else got poor, and that's wrong. Because somebody got rich, multiple people got the opportunity.
How much inflation do you want?
No.
Perhaps I might be a good job wiping shit off
because
the
somebody
floor
got
of
rich does not
people.
mean that a bunch of other people got poor. That is a fallacy.
It's not a fallacy. Hold on a minute. No, let's just pull back.
When Jack Dorsey of Twitter got rich, all of his employees got poor? No, they became employees of Twitter. Facebook employs a ton of people all around the world because they're Facebook. Now, are they all as rich as Mark Zuckerberg? No, but they were given opportunities to get their foot in the door at a tech company and to put Facebook on their resume.
Very pro the old capitalism, I noticed, Candace, as I listen to you.
Big secret on
listen, right? So listen, here's there's the world. It is limited. It's only that big. No. There are people on the world. There's only a tiny number of people have got most of the wealth and assets. Some of it will trickle down to the others. That's the idea. That idea is not working.
No, your
What's
idea
happening is people are keeping that wealth and not letting it trickle down, sticking people in prison because there are these brilliantly economic.
How do you extract wealth from wealthy people?
Take it.
See, that's your problem. Theft. No, competition, free markets, building a product that's better than Facebook.
That's what's led to this.
No, it's not. It's not what led to it.
So what led to this then? Socialism?
Do you think globalism, and which is something that I'm staunchly against, and I speak out about all the time. I don't agree with globalism. Globalism is a bunch of elitists finding themselves and saying, wait, look at how much power we control. Now we can make sure that we're the only ones that maintain
what do you think
it.
Should be done about that?
That's
more regulation. That's more government.
No, it's not. It's the function of government to make sure that doesn't happen. Limited government. That is literally why we started putting in place these policies in America.
If the government we have now
capitalism, if it is able to run without a government,
we're both literally eating food now. If like all over the microphone, if the governments that we currently have are unable to curb or in any way control corporate power, how is less government going to do that more effectively?
Well, less government.
That's just a fight you on one of your own fronts.
No. I'm saying limited government. So the idea that growing welfare programs and trying to extract wealth from the rich, it's not going to work. That doesn't work over time, because if you want to talk about a finite resource, there's only so much money you can bleed out of rich people. And that's not, and it never happens that way, by the way. They take money from the rich and they enrich themselves. The government gets bigger, the government gets richer, and the people get poorer. That is what the history of the world has taught us.
Do you just say some things to be annoying?
No, because it's true.
You do. I've got a list of things.
Cuba. You know what happened in the Soviet Union. You know what happened in Cuba. You know what's happening in Venezuela. You know that socialism doesn't work, and yet you're teaching or
I'm not talking about socialism.
But you are. You're just not calling it socialism. That's what you're talking about.
New systems. We can't have
What is it? What is the new system? You're either going to grow government or you're going to grow the individual.
No, that's not the only option.
Go,
available.
give me another option.
So confrontational.
Yeah.
Well, I think decentralized, collectivized communities, a confederacy of principled, cooperating, fully autonomous, self-governing communities that might require to some degree some ability to tax, regulate, and control certainly the kind of transnational monoliths that we currently
tax through the
have.
government?
I don't know, but
that's the problem.
But listen, but hold on a second. You can't get all amped up at me because I'm not able to immediately design a new system.
But it's not immediately. You've been doing this for a while, and when I listen to you, no, it's not immediately. This is not the first time you've had this conversation. You're either you want to play it both ways. So you want to say I believe in the community, but the community should tax. Okay, so the community should be a government.
Wait a second. Let's try and see if we can work it out together.
Yeah.
All right. Because if it's not good, we just simply won't use this bit of the podcast.
No, we're going to use all of it. People need to know we are building a government.
Let me think. Right. Just say we take, for example, now we've had Brexit, Britain could be an independent unit. What if I agree that we decentralise government power because it is meaningless and it doesn't serve ordinary people? However, what we need, some people, a lot of people it seems, do want jobs and want to be meaningfully paid for those jobs. Some people that I think are not paid enough money, police, nurses, teachers, none of these people are paid enough for what they do.
That's because of the unions. That's because of the government.
Oh yeah, the old unions and the government.
It is. It's true. If you allow us to fire bad teachers.
Why are you bringing negative things in here? Why are you bringing negative energy into my utopia?
But it's true. It's true. The government is the reason for that.
Now, definitely in this new utopia that we're trying to create, it wouldn't. Your gender, religion, and race would be irrelevant to you. You'd be free to practice whatever.
That's foolish. I already don't agree with this government. That's insane.
Hold on a minute. The government's not done anything yet.
No. This is ridiculous.
What's ridiculous?
Let me ask you a question, actually. A very good question.
Come on.
Ready?
How do you know it's good yet? Who else have you asked it? Who else talks to you?
No. Okay, listen.
Poor old Kanye West.
Do you believe in the myth of that's a loaded question. Do you believe in multiculturalism?
Do I believe that there are many cultures?
That they can just coexist peacefully?
I think that there are many cultures.
Yes, you think that they can exist?
I think, look, we're two people in a room,
right,
and it's a problem. So, of course, there's going to be conflict if people have got different belief systems. However, we can't say, right, hold on a minute. So you want total deregulation of bloody capitalists, but when it comes to what book people read when they're praying, suddenly we like government.
I don't mind that.
Suddenly we like regulation.
There is no regulation. You can be whatever religion you want to be in America. There's no regulation on that. But what I'm saying to you is, do you believe that multiple cultures can coexist peacefully? Because that's a huge problem.
Well, what do you believe in then? Sectarianism?
I believe that the biggest problem facing Europe right now is the mass migration from countries that do not support the culture of Europe.
Right, look, shut up. Let's talk about some positive.
All right, good.
Let's talk about some positive things for change.
Good.
We're trying to create a utopia over here. In this new Britain that we're trying to create on my A4 pad, it doesn't matter what your gender is or how you identify. It doesn't matter what colour you are, and it doesn't matter what your religion is. You cannot impose your will on other people. You can't go around saying, yeah, but you should believe this or you shouldn't believe that. You got to leave people the hell alone, right?
That doesn't work.
It does here.
A component of Sharia law is that people that are non-believers get killed.
Hold on a second. I didn't say we wanted
it's utopia.
I didn't say we want Sharia law.
Right.
I'm not bringing in Sharia law. We're not having that on the island. It sounds terrifying.
Right, well,
who is this Sharia? Now, what we're gonna do on the island now is that people can be, they're fully autonomous. They can do what they want. Now, I suppose we are gonna have to have communities. Now, I think it might be hard for human beings to live in communities that are too big. I think many of the problems that we're experiencing now is it's hard for us to hold the number of relationships. We see too much variety of life. It's confusing for people. I think we need to live in smaller communities, and within these communities, these units, these, let's call them Soviets. People have full democracy within it. People vote on how they want their resources, as happened in Porto Alegre, Brazil. You vote on, like, say each community is allocated a budget, and the members of that community vote for how to spend that budget. Okay. Right, that's good so far. Okay. We do need some municipal resources, i.e. roads.
I agree. Police officers, firemen.
Police, firemen, nurses, all of those. Mm-hmm. So that revenue has got to come from somewhere.
Absolutely.
Private business world isn't going to...
That's a tax I'm comfortable with because it's for municipalities. And that's the difference between not theft and something that I get to use if I need it.
Now, are we going to need some kind of, because people are going to be jealous of this, they're going to want to come and live here with us. We're going to, I don't know, how we're going to control what population we have here.
Right.
We're going to need to know, right, okay, we can, with our resources, we can sustain. We're not building,
I'm sorry.
We're an island, thankfully. We're surrounded by a moat already. Look, what I'm saying is that there are so many unexplored possibilities, and people on both the left and right, and God knows I've spoke to enough of them now, impede further debate and progressing by insisting that their pre-existing ideology is the only thing that could possibly work, as if history were rich enough and long enough, that blinking of an eye, the expanding of one flower that is humanity, were enough to examine all possibilities. Now, all that stuff you say is woolly, wishy-washy, lefty claptrap is mere pragmatism. The experience of being human is painful enough without us being cruel to one another. We need to live in communities where people are invested at an administrative and certainly at a democratic level in the way that their resources are spent and the way their communities are run, the way their schools are run, the way their hospitals are run. Full democratization. That's what I'm arguing for.
So everything that you just drew is America. The founding...
No, it bloody well isn't.
No,
because I tell you what's not in here.
Stop.
Ferguson, Donald Trump.
Stop. The founding principles of America is what you just drew, and that's what conservatives fight for. I'm going to again state that you are a conservative, you just haven't acknowledged it yet.
I'm not conservative.
You are. You don't realize it.
I'm just going to say that you're an anarchist, and you don't acknowledge it, because you want to break down all power structures, and you think that people should not be impeded by government.
That's not true. I want limited government, what you just wrote. Municipalities, that's the function of government. The government should make sure that those programs run efficiently, that we have access to that people are paving roads and that sort of a thing. The infrastructure, all of that.
All right, this is an important thing I think might bust up your conservative thing. That our priorities are not commerce. Our priorities are creating and nourishing the communities that we live in, supporting and loving one another.
So take me through a day.
According to his ability, to each according to their needs.
But that's commerce. That is commerce.
It's actually communism.
It's not.
Let's call it communityism. It's communityism. We make the community the most important thing. And what the community has to do is empower the individual and love the individual and acknowledge that we, in our history of colonization and war, we have hurt and damaged one another. And people are carrying trauma and pain from, like your anorexia and racial abuse as an adolescent, for me, are prime examples of exactly that. And plaudits to you for the way that you have alchemized that into individual potency. But I don't think we should be getting off the train too early. Why set the bar so low for humankind? Not only are we not victims, we can be glorious. We are not determined by our lower instincts and the lower aspects of our nature. We can continue to grow, continue to aspire.
The thing is that when I ask you to draw it out, you're drawing systems that already exist. But you haven't created anything new, and so we can look back into the history and see how it worked out. Communism.
No, hold on. I'm not drawing things that
Mao.
Hold on a sec. Mao was hardly decentrist, was he?
No,
There's a serious centralized power and bureaucracy.
I know, but he raised that uprising that you're talking about, the proletariat versus the rich people.
Yeah, but you needn't. You're riding on a wave of contemporary populism, and this populism, could, as Steve Bannon says, could go either way. It could go either way. Either ordinary people go, yeah, it's really going to help me to deregulate the already powerful people that are trotting around the globe like ogres, or we could, through this wave of populism, empower community, empower ordinary people. And we are all ordinary people, ultimately, in spite of our various individual skills and abilities.
I think you just don't like the word capitalism.
I don't like that the goal of the individual should be the
but I didn't say it has to be the goal. I just said if you want to only work this much and be rewarded this much, and you decided that the balance in your life is that you want to instead go and give to the community more, that should be allowed. But why should you be able to govern how much I give to the community versus how much I give to myself? That's wrong. That makes you a dictator. You decided that you know so well about society that you're going to tell everybody that they have to donate.
I didn't say that.
You, but I'm saying the big you. Like the concepts that you're preaching here, because you don't like to name what you're saying, right? You don't like to, when I say socialism, I didn't say that. Yeah, you're basically telling us in this entire podcast that you believe in socialism. I'm a communist.
The next minute you say I'm a conservative.
You're a little bit of both. You're a conservative communist.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
These are times when the old divides, and the old polarities are starting to dissolve. While we feel like people are becoming more and more opposed to each other, I think we're becoming closer and closer to rejecting the systems that oppress us, not just economically. These are the crumbs. I'm talking about spiritually, preventing people from realizing their potential. So I do believe in the power of previously oppressed people, but I think people, as an individual, I wouldn't like to continue to revel in my misery. Oh, this happened.
That's what people want to do.
People do need to progress. But to deny something as historically scarring.
I didn't live through slavery, so why would I be scarred by that?
Well, there is some evidence to suggest that there is a hereditary trauma. I mean, even psychological.
Sounds like it was written by a leftist professor, probably at Cambridge.
Because, the same way that we evolve features, we evolve emotionally. And something as recent as that.
That is so ridiculous. Everybody feels it, because everyone has been a slave at some point. There was slavery here, too.
Yeah, but
there was slavery
I know that.
on
I'm not saying England's great. I know what.
So did you feel your slavery pain the other week?
I'm from Essex.
Should we hold hands?
We did not
the
have...
slavery that we both experienced when we follow... Oh, my gosh. Oh, it feels so good to acknowledge,
Candace, for God's sake,
finally, the pain that we both feel.
People that
with the
are only getting the audio of
this
might be concerned, Candace. Now listen, Jenny Mayfield, you've got to get this picture before Candace pulls her elegant hand out of here.
We've all been slaves. It's so sad. No, this feels good.
But why would... I don't think that people should revel in misery, but you have to acknowledge pain. You have to acknowledge that history has happened. What do you think about reparations?
But the pain doesn't exist anymore.
What do we think about...
I'm against it.
You're against reparations, but there would be no United Kingdom. There would be no United States of America.
It's the most slippery slope I've ever heard in my entire life.
Well, where do you think it would slip and slide off to?
Are you kidding?
Equality.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. It would go into but before we were slaves in Africa, everybody has it in their past. So how far back do you want to do reparations? Roman Empire? Do you want to go back to that? Do the Italians owe everybody reparations? You get what I'm saying? The slope is so slippery that you can't just decide at what point in society. Yeah, and by the way, the best reparations, the most successful black people in the world.
Drawing lines. A system is a line. You're currently saying, well, let's not do any reparation.
No, I don't believe
Let's not share any wealth. That's where the lines are currently drawn. So, for me, people that talk about reparations, they raise an important point by exposing the fact that these... great countries of ours, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, are entirely founded on stolen spoils. You talk about taxation of the rich being stealing, then what the fuck was slavery? What the fuck was colonialism? Other than stealing on a massive scale. You can't have one without the other,
But what I'm saying is that slavery still exists in Africa today. So for people to pretend that it was stolen from and we were kings and queens in Africa is a myth. No, we were slaves. We were sold by our own people. So who are we mad at? The Africans? Are we mad at the Americans? It's a piece of history that happened. It was very unfortunate. Okay, but it happened to it is unfortunate, but it happens everywhere. There were slaves during,
and it's not that long ago.
No, but since the beginning of time, there have been slaves. So how do you just decide that black slaves in America are the ones that deserve reparations? The slope is too slippery.
I suppose it's not slippery.
And let me tell you something.
It doesn't have to be slippery. I tell you what is slippery. You.
No.
You're what's slippery.
The challenge is to ask black Americans: would you rather be in America today? Do you wish that it never happened? And a single black American that I've met will tell you if they wish they lived in Africa today. Do you want to know why? Because all the opportunities opportunities are in America. Black Americans today, if we banded together, would be the 30, I think number 6 in terms of the economy in the world.
How do you mean band together?
Like if we said we're going to create our own little country, Black Americans.
That'd be good.
Yeah, we would be ranked as like.
Should that happen?
If the way that these people are talking, it just might. We have self-segregation happening in America now, which is about the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Candace, I want you to be more optimistic. I want you to be more ambitious. I feel like they're how old are you, if I may ask?
29.
Oh my God. I can't even
Is that
believe
old or
I've been
young?
talking to you. Young.
Old or young? Okay.
Young. What happened with? Hold on. Let me do the sort of questions that are easy to make clips out of. I might have to. Do you know things we might have to lift out of this? I think I've called you love twice. That's sexist. That'll have to go.
See, there we go. Now
what
we're
else
living.
What else have I done? I didn't mean to do it. I meant love as in affection towards you.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, why can't you say that? Because some
people find it offensive.
Do you see why I hate the society we live in? It's a joke.
You hate the society?
No, I mean the society people are trying to create leftists. Only a leftist would pull that out of a clip and say it's wrong. Only a leftist gets mad when a man opens a door.
Do you think they've got any real power though?
No, yeah, they do because they're dressing it up as feminism when in reality they're gaining power.
But power is control over resources. Do you think there's any
they just
real
controlled
power?
you saying
like
something
that
to your
Soros thing.
Of course there is. When they freak out, they try to stop Brett Kavanaugh from being nominated to the Supreme Court. That was radical feminism. He never sexually harassed anybody. Never happened.
God, I'm sure a different kind of interview would have a field day with you because the things you say like probably be amazing.
Fake rape is a thing now, so we have to acknowledge it.
Crikey. Right, now listen, young
lady.
It's a thing. Now, well, I'm going to stop you.
Yeah, see?
This
You're
is a great
scared, I'm
question
not.
From Jenny. No, you're not scared. That I will say for you, which is a wonderful quality in a human. Where do you think true power lies?
Within the individual, within yourself.
Well, that's not true, is it? Because what individual on this planet is as powerful as Halliburton?
Well, what's your measure of power?
Ability to get what you want done.
But what do you want done? That varies from individual to individual. So the power rests within the individual.
But there is a uniform concept of will, and the people whose will is most easily exerted. There is a hierarchy. So I would say, and the most powerful people are people that are generally born into positions where the power had already been accumulated and exists. All right. But it's definitely true, though, Candace, and we're going to edit this so that your response will be, Russell, you've really changed my mind there. What you said was so insightful
Russell,
and wise.
You've really changed my mind.
Thank you for giving
what
us
you
that.
said was so insightful and so wise. I'm so glad to be here.
That's the trailer. Candace, what about this thing here? Do you think, this is a good question, Jenny. Jenny wrote this question. Do you think the old Protestant myth that working hard and personal responsibility is deployed to prevent governments and authorities from actually helping? Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Well, the idea is that we don't want governments. We believe in ourselves on a community level. So that's the goal, is to realize that the job of a government wasn't supposed to be to govern every piece of our lives. You know, the government in many ways is trying to replace God. You know, people use. I
do like that idea, and I agree with it, that statism and post-Westphalian Treaty nationalism simply replaced the notion of an omnipotent deity with the state. That's definitely true. Well, according to my little brain. All right, now what about this thing here? I want to ask about Kanye West, because that's a very sort of important celebrity type of thing.
Right.
So what happened there?
Which portion
Kanye
of
West,
it?
like he's banging to you,
yeah,
and then now he says I've been used. What do you mean by?
I first and foremost, I know Kanye didn't write those tweets. It's not how he speaks, but Kanye realized very soon, and this is the cleanest I could say it, because I did make a promise to him that I wouldn't speak about this publicly.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah, but Kanye realized, I think, very quickly that there's no such thing as doing politics halfway. You are either fully in and you risk everything around you, your friends, your family, your wherever you are in life, your business negotiations, like in the way that Trump did, or you're out of it. And unfortunately, and this, I guess, is public, Kim always says that she disagrees with Kanye politically. And so for him to cause a tremor in his life all around him, he has children, young children, that's a risky deal to make. I mean, he also has this big Adidas deal. That's a risky thing to do, to go into politics, to put on a MAGA hat, to talk to Trump. And the left controls Hollywood. I mean, that's just what it is. You know that. They all think the same. Every award show, it's not even funny anymore. It's just like, we'll just talk about Trump for the next 2 hours. I mean, it's a joke. They've ruined comedy. And I think that Kanye it was receiving a lot of heat, and he respectfully needed to step out of the kitchen. I guess I was his entrance into politics, and I was his entrance out. It was, him tweeting me that caused the entire firestorm, and it was him tweeting me that was the same way out. But I deeply respect him.
So you feel, so when people get involved in politics, it's all consuming.
Oh, it's every layer of your life. They try to find everything you've ever done in your entire life. They try to get people to speak out against you. The amount of fights I've had with my family because reporters call and say things that I never said. Hey, Candace tells me you're this or that. And then your parents obviously think that they're telling the truth, and they get all flustered. And they are...
Your granddad is super proud of you, hey?
Yeah, my grandpa loves me.
What's his name?
Robert.
And
Granddad.
You're the apple of his eye.
Yeah, well, I'm his child. I'm just, he's somebody that started his life on a sharecropping farm and worked his butt off, never said he couldn't do something because he was black or he was disadvantaged because he grew up in a segregated South. He just worked hard, kept his head down, did what he had to do, and found success. And I definitely got my motivation in life from his sort of steady counseling. He's like a no-nonsense.
He sounds like an incredible man. But, what do you feel like... success is going to look like for you ultimately? What would it feel like, success for you? What would make you fulfilled, Candace?
I think first and foremost, cracking the black vote, showing that we're not a monolith, that we think differently, and that we're starting to listen to the policies, not the emotional argument. For any group of individuals to be voting in 90% margins for one party shows you that, and especially when that party has never done anything that has served you, shows you that we've made an emotional investment into politics and ultimately harmed our personal lives.
Do you not think it's significant that there are only two parties, and that neither of those parties meaningfully represent the interests of people that have historically been oppressed?
I think Trump represents a whole new...
How?
Because he's independent. They all hate him. Everybody hates Trump.
Yeah, but that doesn't help average
except
guys.
For the American people.
I've made a few quid out of these people hating Trump.
Right.
Trump being hated as an independent doesn't help ordinary people of any colour.
But it does, because he's bringing jobs back to America. We were selling our soul overseas, and they're teaching us to hate being American.
Well,
they're teaching us
reindustrializing. Actually, factories and manufacturing jobs are
coming back, but people don't.
Is this really true though? Because you know how they look. You work in politics more than I do. You know it's like a game.
Right.
You know there's not a lot of truth in that world on either side.
Well,
they're not that different.
That's
None
correct.
of them are that different.
Well, I travel 6 days a week, and I travel to every state, even to Hawaii. I've spoken
Where is
to this year.
there love and comfort in your life? Who looks after you?
My cat.
A cat.
She's so
nutter.
cute.
You nutter.
Her name is Bear. Hey,
My
Bear.
dog's called Bear.
Really?
Yeah.
We have so much in common.
Well, yes, but also
my bear will beat your bear up.
Strongly disagree. I don't think so, because he's like a mad wolf.
Yeah, but cats are fast.
She'll have to be.
A lion takes out a wolf at the top of the food chain.
Because you know what the problem is that that dog is a pain in... Well, I'm not going to get into the dog. We've got so much to discuss.
Yeah.
He's a pain in the
arse. It is important, though. We should maybe another time.
We should cover pets one of these days. When people do... you're pretty strong when them people are protesting.
Yeah.
You're like, I watched some videos where there's people protesting at the back and stuff.
Yeah.
You hold yourself together well, don't you?
Yeah, they're totally like insane.
But then you feel like... Why don't you feel like... This is what I feel like. I watch like right-wing people because I'm fascinated and I kind of admire the bravery. I've got to say that. But do you not feel like that you want to receive and give love to people? Is that not sort of high on your agenda as a person?
Of course it is. And I receive so much love, because once people have this political awakening and they realize that everything that's been sold to them is a lie, nothing feels better than self-empowerment, actually feeling like you can do it when it comes within you. Hate is a strong emotion, but doesn't feel as good as love. Saying everybody, my life sucks because of all of you, doesn't feel as good as saying I can do anything.
Sure, of course.
But you mean personal?
Who would argue? But that is not the clearest and most obvious manifestation of love.
I get that from my family.
Do you? That's good.
Yeah.
Because the most obvious manifestation of love that I can think of is to accept and understand other people, that people have had different experiences to you in life, and that
I accept that. Of course, and I accept that we're always going to have different experiences. That's called life. You can't create a system where everybody is equal. It doesn't exist.
Well, you've seen my drawing.
Right. It just doesn't exist. That's utopia.
It's nearly there, though. We've already got the fire station.
But yeah, I mean, I look for love in my personal life. I don't look for love in my political life. I understand that when you
why not? Why should the political world be exempted? We are human beings.
Well,
that
no,
feel lonely
because what I am doing is giving them the power to go into their personal lives and feel whole.
My
and complete.
terrible fear, Candace, is what you're actually doing is wrangling them into sort of the corralling them into a position where the most powerful people in the world can continue to benefit from them. Because whilst I agree that there are bogus sort of lefty Democrat people that contribute a lot to the debate, and I don't support the sort of the mainstream media and the narratives that they put forward, and I've seen you arguing very articulately and brilliantly with people, I feel that the most powerful people in the world will benefit if people believe in individual power. People do need to collectivize to challenge power. It's the only way we can ever change the world.
No, I do not believe in collectivization. I believe that's a terrible, terrible thing
Tribe. To do. Community is what we're from.
I believe in communities, of course, but
a community is a collective.
Well, collectivism leads to communism. So no, but
not necessarily.
I think it's important to acknolledge the individuals.
Doesn't have to be the same as the past. That's your big argument: is that we don't have to be defined by our history; that we can create new futures. So collective and community-based ideologies needn't automatically lead to state communism and the gulags.
Well,
and the
you couldn't differentiate it for me, though.
Yes, I could. I was only spent 10 minutes, and I thought it was going quite well, actually. We'd had a lovely democratic community.
You did okay, but you couldn't say what the role of government was going to be. And I'm telling you, look, it's hard to.
Why would the government even be abstract?
You and I are not special
are
snowflakes. Okay, you and I'm going to tell you, we're not special snowflakes.
I'm not saying that.
We're not original. Every system has been
last
thought
10
of
seconds,
and tried.
I've held one, just turned into nothing.
But it's been tried.
I want to be a blizzard, a storm, a tundra, a mighty snow-capped mountain. You are. There's no question.
That's what I am.
Very, very wonderful. But I think you must be a bit more kind to people.
I am
and a bit more compassionate to people that feel
that
hurt.
Are shrieking in my face, calling me a white supremacist.
It's not nice to shriek at people. I agree with you.
It's hard to find compassion in my belly when I'm being shrieked at and called a white supremacist because somebody read a Guardian article.
Don't get angry. What did our Lord do? He forgive them. They know not what they do. Yeah. Forgiveness, endless love.
I do love leftists.
If you've been put in a position of power, then you have an obligation to be loving. That's your first obligation.
Right.
Not to be all practical. Because I don't think you've been given enough love, other than this granddad.
Do you see how many hugs I give?
Absolutely amazing.
No, you only see because you've only
I'm talking about when you're a little kid. I don't mean now, all that crap in the media.
Oh,
that's
of course
bullshit.
I was. I
love
grew up
granddad.
with my grandparents.
He sounds amazing,
yeah,
Robert. I'm all over this guy. I love him.
And my grandma who passed.
What's her name?
I mean, Nola.
Nola and Robert sound terrific people that have overcome tremendous odds.
I got too much love.
Don't say that. Why the anorexia?
They're because I was trying to assert control in my life, and that was the way that I dealt with it. But I mean, I have.
What about other people that have got anorexia? What do you say to them? Buck up.
I wouldn't say that. No,
so
I understand it obviously in the same way that you would understand drug addiction on a more molecular level because you've lived it.
All right.
I would tell them that they need to identify what they're trying to control.
When I'm talking to drug addicts, I say this: somewhere in you do not think that you are beautiful. You have been hurt. There is a way out of this pain through spiritual connection to one another, through service, through higher ideals, to recognize your own beauty and to realize it. That's the sort of thing I have to say to them. Right? It's not. Come on! It's not like it's not like a Rocky montage.
Anorexia is different, though.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I can't.
I wouldn't give that pep
it.
speech. They'd look at you and they'd be like,
"Yeah, no, they're crafty, the anorexics. I've never known such complexity."
Right?
People,
yeah, it's very complex.
It really is, but I have to believe that love is more important than hate, that unity and togetherness are more powerful than individualism.
It is, but you once you have to empower individuals. I do not want to be the same person that you are. I don't want to be treated like we're the same person. I don't want to be the same person that any person around me is. I don't want to be treated as if we're the exact same person. You can cookie cut society and say, oh, this is what Candace likes for breakfast, so that must be we're all just going to have the same cereal for breakfast. I don't like that.
Hey.
We are individuals. You should celebrate the individual.
I do agree with that.
And the individual should come together to form a community that takes care of issues for individuals that can't take care of themselves.
That's a good idea. Now, this would you be willing, if over time, when human beings come up with better ideas, as human beings evolve, if better ideas than free market capitalism were to emerge, would you be open to those ideas?
I love ideas. If there was something better
than exists the possibility. A better idea than globalized free market capitalism. It exists in the realm of infinite possibility through which all realized ideas must have surely have traveled. There exists now better ideas that are more fair, more just. They are there waiting to happen, these ideas. And when they arrive, which they will, you will be open to them?
I will be the first person that opens my loving arms and says, come here, new idea that's going to fix everything. And then
Brilliant.
yeah.
Because I'm probably just need another 10, 15 minutes with my pad and we'll be willing to leap in that direction. All right, well, I think we've done as much as we can given the limitations that we're obviously working within. What do you think, Candace?
I think it's been lovely.
It's been good, isn't it? Because we essentially disagree on almost everything, then agree quite strongly on some things.
Right. Well, what is I've just taken a step further. Like, you actually agree with me on absolutely everything that I'm saying. You just haven't plugged it in. You just haven't plugged it in to realize that it's actually a capitalist, not crony capitalism, but a capitalist society with free markets that helps people out of poverty.
No.
It's one step. So
needs massive
we're
regulation.
Like
We've seen the results of that.
Me and Russell walking. And then I took one step. And you're here. And I'm like, Russ, come back, Russ. So hopefully I helped you a little bit.
I can see why Kanye West nearly threw his career into a bin. You're absolutely charming. That was amazing. Thank you. Fucking hell.
Thank you. That was awesome.